A general announcement, uh, only zoning board members, the zoning board attorney, and the township officials have your video on. Everyone else participate in the meeting. Please turn off your video. At 7:29, I will unmute all the zoning board members and township officials, the board secretary, the board attorney.
Vina, you want all board members to stop their video except for myself and Jim?
No, I think
Oh.
I think they can keep their video on.
Okay.
In fact, I think at 7:29, only the board members can unmute themselves for
Right.
the salute. So that will be easier. Because we have a lot of panelists, it might be a little tricky to unmute each one. So just zoning board members, unmute yourself at 7:29 when the meeting is to begin. We have 1 more minute, and then you can unmute yourself.
Not now.
It's 7:29. Zoning board members, board attorney, board secretary, township officials, please unmute yourself. Everyone else, please remain unmuted and turn off your videos. Our court reporter, please turn off your video.
All right, I believe it is 7:30. I'm going to begin the meeting. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting for May 21, 2020. I'm James Sullivan, and as chairman of the zoning board, I would ask you all now to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country.
Chairman, just for a minute. Alex, can you please give me the sharing ability?
Yes, I will do. Give me a second. This is done. Please proceed.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America,
to the
to the republic which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, all. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by prominently posting in municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, the agenda of this meeting. Also by mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune, and finally by filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk. Ms. Silverman, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dewhurst,
Here.
Mr. Connor,
Here.
Ms. Keldorf? Mr. Scogno?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Psychowski?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Here.
Chairman Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Sachs?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Here.
Mr. Want?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Ms. Drum?
Here.
Mr. Lavallo? Not here yet, okay. And me, Kim Silverman, Vice Chair, Vice Secretary.
Thank you. Once again, with reference to COVID-19 pandemic, the board continues to take notice of the misery and death that's befallen residents of our township, the state, United States, and across the globe. Again, we offer our condolences to the victims and their families. And, we offer hope and peace to those suffering in hospitals or quarantined in their own homes. We pray that we will soon be able to join our families in society and return to normalcy. And I think we're quickly approaching that. Let's hope so. And we can continue moving forward. Once again, we offer our thanks to all the frontline workers who risk their lives every day. I would ask now, everyone, please observe a moment of silence for those who have passed. Thank you all. This meeting is being conducted electronically via the internet by webinar. It is unique. It will take patience for all involved as we are no longer gathered in one courtroom, but we're doing this from our own homes. This meeting is also being televised by OBTV Channel 15, as well as YouTube. I remind those who are watching on TV that there is up to a 30-second delay in communication. This will be important to remember if you wish to personally join the public portion. Anyone calling in must lower their TV or whatever device you're watching on. Otherwise, you'll be confused by the time delay. I would ask all participants at this point to silence their cell phones to avoid any further disturbances. I'm going to check mine. The meeting will follow the same protocols as always. There are some general housekeeping matters that will start this meeting tonight, followed by 3 applications. In between the second and third application, there's going to be a 5-minute recess for the benefit of the stenographer, the professionals, and the board members. As in all applications, and particularly those who are interested at home, there is always a public portion that follows testimony in each application. If you have a particular interest in any application and you wish to ask questions via telephone, I suggest that you take notes during the presentation to refresh your memory when you call in. Now would be a perfect time to access paper and pencil. The procedure that's followed is normally in these cases, 2 of the applications will be represented by an attorney who presents the application, more or less introduces his experts. They speak before the board. There may be 3, 4 different experts in different areas of their own fields. They will present their testimony. After their testimony, I will then ask the professionals from the township if they have any questions, and quite often they will. Upon finishing with them, I will then turn to the board members and the board attorney. Should anyone from the board want to make any comments or ask any questions. After all the witnesses are done for the evening, and this is important for you watching at home, after all the witnesses are done, I will open a public portion. Now, I don't know that any or all or none of these applications tonight did it. They will certainly start. Each time we have an application, you will have an opportunity to speak. So please, on your TVs, you should see a virtual meeting notice. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Sawant if she has some further comments that she wants to speak to the public about calling in. Ms. Sawant?
Sure. I have some general announcements. First, it is to all our panelists. Make sure that your face is in the middle of your viewing window, not too low, not too high, so that you are clearly visible and you are heard. Once the meeting commences, in the first half of the meeting, all zoning board members will be unmuted while they take votes on different agenda items. Once the presentation for the public hearing begins, the zoning board attorney, the zoning board chairman, the zoning board secretary, and the reporter will remain unmuted. Everyone else, please unmute yourself. The zoning board members will have their video on, but make sure you are muted. All other participants, please turn off your video and mute yourself. When it is your turn to speak, I will ask you to turn on your video and I will unmute you. For the public, during the public commentary period, I will announce the last 4 digits of the caller's phone number or the last name to come forward. Once they are allowed to speak, I will announce the next caller's number. In fact, when I announce the last 4 digits of your phone number, I will also alert the next caller by calling out the last 4 digits of that person's phone number, so that he or she knows that it is going to be next will be their turn to speak. Please be patient. We are carefully monitoring all callers, so you will get an opportunity to speak. Just be patient. Always remember that there is a 30-second time delay. So, and that's all. Multiple times during the meeting, I will display the information board. So anybody who joins in the meeting halfway through will be able to call in using the webinar ID, the password. When you're using your cell phone, please press *9 to raise your hand once the chairman opens the meeting to public. Again, press *9 to raise your hand, and I will call out the last 4 digits of the numbers as I see them come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. Before I start with the business, I have one quick personal note, and I just wanted to say hello to someone, and that's a special person. That was the person who, when we did a mock trial of how to operate this, he was the first one to ever call in to us, and we received his phone call, and his phone call was received actually by his mother, Veena Sawant. And tomorrow, her son, Vihan, has a birthday. And how old is he, Veena?
He's 13.
13
He'll
tomorrow.
turn 30.
So on
Yes.
behalf of the board, we'd love to wish him a happy birthday. We hope he comes back. He sat in the chairs up on the dais when he came a year ago. And I told him that time the most important person in the room was you. So I hope you live up to that. And you give him a happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you all.
You're welcome. We're going to move forward with completeness waivers. And the first one I have is 13-2020Z. That's V&S Power LLC. I'm holding a memo, and board members, I know you've all received the same memo from Ms. Sawant. This is application 13-2020Z. It's requiring a D variance. The memo, I'll read it into the record, is as follows. Block 3231 lot 9.12 is located at 395 Route 34. The site is bounded by Highway 34 to its north and light industrial uses to its south. Commercial residential uses are also in close proximity to the project location. This site is comprised of a single parcel containing 4.99 acres per the township tax records, and it's located in the EDO1 Economic Development Opportunity 1 zone. Currently, the site is developed with industrial and office facilities. Storage, loading areas, parking, and lawn areas currently exist on the site. The application involves a new use, and it will require a D1 use variance. Our office, when she says our, that's again Ms. Sawant opining, has reviewed the waiver requests by the applicant for the following. Item 3A, environmental impact statement. Item 3D, aquifer recharge assessment. Item 3E, Stormwater management report, item 3B, community impact statement, and item 3C, traffic impact statement. The applicant is proposing no construction, no modification of structures, and no site improvements. Therefore, we have no objections to waiving the environmental impact statement, the aquifer recharge assessment, and the stormwater management report. The following items, however, should be submitted, and that would be item 3B, the community impact statement. In 2018, the Zoning Board of Adjustment granted a D1 use variance for car storage and shipping use, which is not a permitted use in the EDO 1 zone. Based on the testimony provided at the public hearings, the facility would store luxury cars that would be shipped to the European markets. Pursuant to the letter from the applicant's attorney dated August 13, 2019, with this application, the applicant intends to store damaged and disabled vehicles on site. Pursuant to section 250-6 of the Township LDO, Land Development Ordinance, the proposed use meets the definition of a junkyard. A junkyard or a salvage yard is defined as follows: a lot or structure or part thereof used primarily for the collection, storage, and sale of waste paper, rags, scrap metal, or discarded materials, or for the collection, dismantling, storage, and salvaging of machinery and or motor vehicles. Pursuant to section 250-42, junkyards are prohibited in any zones of the township. The proposed use therefore requires a new D1 use variance. Since the applicant is seeking approval for a use that is prohibited in any zone of the township, we recommend that the applicant submits a community impact statement. Also, item 3C, traffic impact statement. A traffic impact statement prepared by McDonough and Ray Associates, Inc., dated November 30, 2017, was submitted when the amended preliminary and final major site plan application was filed. It was 53-17P. Since the applicant is proposing to operate a junkyard at this location, we recommend that the traffic impact statement be amended to show the impact of the new use on the property. At a public hearing in 2018, the engineer testified that they can expect to receive 40 vehicles a day. This was pertaining to the storage and shipping of luxury goods. An updated traffic study would be required to evaluate how the deliveries of the proposed use would impact the site and its surroundings in comparison to the current use. Applicant should be advised the waiving of any completeness items does not constitute approval of any portion of the application, and that any information found necessary during the review process must be supplied. Ms. Salon, any comment?
Yes. So actually,
Ms. Salon, you have no comment.
I
correct?
wasn't.
Okay.
I just wanted to add a few things. I was not part of the original applications, but when reviewing the waiver request, I have reviewed in detail all the transcripts of the meetings that were conducted. I have reviewed the resolution, and it is my opinion that at least these two items should be submitted by the applicant, especially because now it's a change in use. It's a new D1 use variance. I did consult with our board attorney as well to get some feedback on the history of this application, and I'm comfortable in asking the applicant to submit the community impact statement as well as the amended traffic impact report.
Thank you. I believe they're represented by the Holborn Pape firm. I see Mr. Clauser. Mr. Clauser, are you standing in for Mr. Pape tonight?
I am, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I spoke with Vina earlier today. This is Ken's application, but I went over the waivers with him, and Vina's recommendations in her report, and as we discussed earlier today, are acceptable to the applicant. Waiving the aquifer, stormwater, and EIS. Thank you very much. If the board will do that, we will provide a CIS. Vina and I have worked before with the type of CIS that will be required. And then we're gonna ask that our traffic engineer to update their prior report with a letter report, which I think will be satisfactory to Vina. So I would ask that the board act in that direction, grant the waiver on the three items, and we'll supply the other two.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clauser. Mr. Sachs, you have any comment?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as Mr. Clauser will comply with the report as issued by Ms. Savant, then that's fine. And certainly the board can make a motion and we can vote on this waiver request.
Okay, let me just ask, is there any member of the board that wants to be heard on this prior to either moving it or denying it? Okay, well, in that case, then I'm going to ask someone to move the waivers as written.
You all have to unmute themselves.
Yep. Does someone want to move it? I'll tell you what, I'll move it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That's Mr. Connor.
That was Mr. Connor. Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Gelder,
Couldn't hear her.
Do you have a headphone in?
Maybe take your headphone out.
Yeah, try the turning the headphones off.
can we hear you? Ms. Gelder,
Yes.
There we go.
Now we can hear you. Okay.
Mr. Scogna,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
I have Mr. Psychowski. I don't know if you heard me earlier. In the absence of Ms. Chevalier, you will be voting on all matters this evening.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a second waiver. Completeness waiver. It's 11-2020Z. Waste management. Ms. Sawant has authored a memo, and I'm sure everyone has it. This is the subject of waste management, block 4230, lots 14.11, 16.11, and 23. Amended preliminary and final site plan with a D variance. Block 4320, lots 1411, 1611, and 23 is located at 283 Route 34. The site fronts Highway 34 and it's adjacent to several auto service facilities as well as First Friends Childcare. Commercial and residential uses are also in close proximity to the project location. This site consists of 3 lots totaling approximately 4.98 acres for township tax records, located in the EDO1 Economic Development Opportunity Zone. Currently, the site is developed with a waste management facility and parking area. Applicant proposes to add compressed natural gas, CNG, vehicle fueling system to serve the existing facility. It currently contains a diesel and fuel station. The proposed CNG fueling station will eventually, but not part of this application, replace the existing diesel fuel station. The application involves the expansion of an existing non-conforming conditional approval, and this requires a D3 use variance. Our office has reviewed the following waiver requests by the applicant. They are as follows: environmental impact statement, traffic impact statement, aquifer recharge assessment, stormwater management report, drainage, drainage A, complete drainage calculations. B, drainage area map showing area tributaries to each inlet or structures. C, plan of existing and proposed facilities. D, profile of storm sewers. G, soil borings. Also, item 39, streets. Item 40, 5 landscape issues. Item 41 for water mains and sanitary sewers. Item 42, construction details. Also goes on to 42H, mailboxes and other street furniture. Item 43, soil erosion sediment plan. 45 is location dimension for sidewalks, disposal facility signs, parking areas, loading and unloading spaces. Item 52, tree permit. The applicant is not proposing significant changes to the site. The total disturbed area will be approximately 3,200 square foot. The applicant proposes to install an outdoor equipment area on an existing compacted gravel area, which will be fenced within the front yard and close to Route 34. The outdoor equipment area contains the compressor, the gas storage vessel, etc. The proposal also includes installing an underground electrical conduit and placing overhead trusses above the parking stalls that would carry the gas line. The proposed plan does not include any new utilities except those to service the CNG fueling system. The applicant has provided a detailed plan of the existing utilities within the site. No new streets or landscaping is proposed. We therefore recommend that the board waive the above items. The applicant should be advised that the waiving of any completeness item does not constitute approval of any portion of this application, and that any information found necessary during the review process must be supplied. Please note that during the review process, the applicant may be required to submit a landscaping plan should the board professionals find that there isn't adequate screening along the outdoor equipment area. Should there be additional fleet then that was originally approved, a revised traffic study would be required. And that's authored by Vina Sawant. Ms. Sawant?
Yes, I think I've covered everything in my letter. However, I just want to give the background with this because I know it seems like the applicant is asking for a lot of waivers. In reality, the use was permitted as a conditional use in the EDO1 zone. Last year, if you all recollect, we amended our EDO ordinance and added a requirement that any auto-related use or gas station-related use cannot be within 1,000 feet of another such use. This property, the adjacent property to this property is an auto parts use, and so it triggers a D3 use variance. Based on this proposed application, the disturbed area will be roughly 3,000 square feet. What the applicant is proposing to do is, right now, it has diesel fueling station on the property to serve the fleet of vehicles that come to the property. They want to switch to CNG. In future, they will come back to the board to remove the diesel pump, and at that point, only the CNG fueling station will exist and will serve those vehicles. I confirmed with the applicant there will be no new fleet added, so they will maintain the number of fleets that were originally approved. So although they are asking for a lot of waivers, I did go back and forth with the engineer, the attorney. I did require them to submit more details, and they have submitted everything I asked for, and I am comfortable recommending the board to waive these waiver requests.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Mr. Sachs, you have anything?
No, actually, I would concur with Ms. Sawant. I believe counsel is here for the applicant, so as long as counsel has indicated that he is in agreement with the memorandum, the waiver memorandum, then certainly we can proceed forward with the vote.
Okay, Mr. Sardo, you're representing the applicant. The floor is yours.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everybody, and thanks for giving me the floor for a moment. I won't keep you too long, but that's correct. We've reviewed Vina's waiver request letter and agree to all of the items in the letter and look forward to moving forward and presenting the application to the board sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. For the record, would you just put your full name and your address so they can have this on permanent? We're watching on YouTube.
Yes, yes, of course. John A. Sardo, Esquire, from the law firm of Giordano, Halloran, and Ciesla in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Sardo, very much for being here.
I'm at 125 Half Mile Road. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Board members, before we move on, is anybody by a raise of hand that I could see on my screen? Anybody have any comment or questions? Okay, I see none. Is someone then would we someone want to move Miss Sawant's suggestion that we allow the waivers that were asked for?
I'll move it.
That is who, Mr. Scotto?
I'll second it.
Oh,
I think Mr. Stoner moved it and Mr. Scogno seconded.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Keldorf,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
No.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, Mr. Soto. Just threw out my cheat sheet by accident. Okay. The next item we have is one that's been growing a beard like myself. It's the 2019 annual report that we've been putting off from meeting to meeting because we've run so late. And I think we can just quickly get this in. Obviously, everyone has seen it, I'm sure. It's been laying around for months. Mr. Sawant did an excellent job. It encapsulates all the issues that we undertook during the 2019. By rule, that has to be forwarded to the council from the planning board on the actions that were taken and any suggestions that the board might have for the council who they only need to change any of the matters. So I thought it was rather succinct, and I think it was a fine job. Ms. Sawant, anything? You did a good job. Okay, board members.
Thank you.
any,
No, nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Board members, if you raise your hand if you want to make a comment, I'll recognize you. Other than that, Mr. Sachs, anything?
No, as I think Mr. Sullivan just said, this is an annual task that the zoning board has to engage in. It's just basically just reporting the number of C variances, D variances, site plans, and essentially the disposition of those applications, any court cases that arose and the disposition of those. And essentially this goes to the planning board, and then the planning board can then make recommendations to the governing body about perhaps changing zoning ordinances based upon the results of this particular report. So nothing
That's
further.
it in a nutshell, board members. Someone want to will memorialize the annual report? Someone want to move it?
I'll move it.
Connor?
Connor?
Mr. Connor, yep.
Who was second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Stagno. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. All right, if you're watching at home, this now comes to the application part of the evening. And there, as I mentioned, there's going to be three. They're going to be, if you are watching, the first one's going to concern an add a level on a home. The second one is a rebuilding a home that was destroyed in Sandy. And the final one is named Vision, and that's on 105 Madawan Road for an assisted living and independent community. So they're going to go in that order. And we're going to start with the first one. I'll call it in. It's 3919Z. It's Janet Budge. That's block 220, lot 28. The actual location is 47 West Shore West. This is in the R6 zone. They're requiring a D variance here for FAR. It's an R6 zone. This matter is not represented, but I believe that there is a Catherine Budge who will be speaking this evening.
Yes.
Is her microphone on? All right. Mr. Sachs, Ms. Budge, the board attorney is going to swear you in before we hear anything from you, and he's going to give you an advisory about the board rules and regulations. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Budge, please raise your right hand first. I'll swear you in. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, and address for the record.
My name is Catherine Budge, Budge. My home address is 419 Hoffman Station Road, Monroe Township, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Budge, I just want to advise you that there is a rule in our zoning board rules that are adopted each year that state that a D variance requires the attendance of a court reporter. Now, your application is seeking a D4 floor area ratio variance. And in those cases, you certainly have the option to waive the requirement of having a court reporter. And I'm assuming that that's what you would like to do in this matter?
Yes, I'd like to waive that.
Okay. The only risk you run is that if the application is denied at some point, you would probably have to provide a transcript by communicating with the secretary of our board and getting a copy of the tape. All right, but that's the only, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Ms. Budge, When we have residents, in this case, I believe you're representing someone else, apparently a relative by name, and we'll let you go through that and tell us the story. But what we need to hear from you is what is going on, what's going to be done, what has been done, how is this going to be affected, why is it going to be done, all the who, what, whys, and where. And then if the board professionals may have questions to ask you, and then perhaps the board members may have questions to ask you. And then, of course, we'll come to a position where you will have the opportunity to ask for a vote or not ask for a vote from us, depending on what you put on the record. Don't forget, you have a burden of proof under a use variance to put certain things on the record. And absent those, it would be very difficult for the board to approve your application. So why don't you just start off and we'll try and help you along as we go. Please explain who you are in relation to the property owner.
Ms. Butch, Ms. Butch, before you begin, I just want to make one announcement because I see that some residents are raising their hands, and I want to just be clear. We haven't opened the meeting to public yet. The chairman will announce when we open the meeting or when it is time for public commentary. So please raise your hand or press *9 only after the chairman asks you to do so, because even if I see that you are raising your hand, I cannot interrupt testimony that is being presented. We will give you a chance to speak. Please be patient. Please listen to the instructions of the chairman. Once he opens it for public, please press *9. Ms. Butch, you can continue. Thank you so much.
I am representing my sister-in-law, Janet Budge, and my brother, Stephen Budge. This application was put in by Stephen last April, and the initial application was for him to raise the roof over the dining room to put a master bedroom in. The whole roof had to be replaced, and adjacent to where the bedroom was the existing attic. And he continued and raised the roof on that section, thereby adding to the square footage of the house. And that's what we're seeking a variance for.
Ms. Budge, you might want to tell the board that you have power of attorney in order to speak on behalf of the actual owner of the home. Is that correct?
I do. I have power of attorney from Janet Budge. She is the homeowner. Unfortunately, we're also looking for a little bit of a hardship consideration here. My brother started this job started building in July, and then he quite suddenly and unexpectedly passed away. And his wife is really not in any condition to continue on with this project. So what we're looking to do is get the variance approval. And then the only work that will be done on the house once this is done is to side it and to close up the dining room ceiling. Other than that, nothing else is going to be done. No other work will be done on the house. A new homeowner will have to do whatever work wants to be done and whatever permits or variances need beyond this point.
Well, when you say new homeowner, are you saying that the house is going to be put for sale?
It will. My sister-in-law, speaking with her grief counselor, told her that she should hold off on selling it for a while, but either way, she will not be able to do any of the work on it. They will live in the existing house as it was before with 3 bedrooms, and that area of the house has not been touched.
Okay. I had the opportunity to pass by the property, and in interest of fairness, I would like you to explain to the board, this work has already been done, correct?
Yes, yes. He started the work in July. He put the building permit in for only the master bedroom portion of it. And I don't know exactly, nobody really knows exactly at what time he decided to increase the attic. He just assumed that raising it on both sides would just give him a larger attic to work with. It was an area that you could only stand in the middle of previous to this.
Okay, is there anything else you want to tell us at this point?
There's nothing done upstairs. It's just a shell. And like I said, we're just looking to side it, close it up, and close the dining room ceiling, which is open.
Okay. One of the problems we have is the fact that you don't have a professional, although I believe architectural drawing and map has been sent to the board, but apparently it leaves a lot of questions unanswered. And some of those questions may or may not trigger further variances. Now, this may sound foreign to you. I don't know how familiar you are with land use law, but unfortunately, those are issues that need to be asked and answered. And absent that, absent the architect appearing before the board, it's going to be very hard for the board to just go ahead and say, sure, it's okay. Because obviously we have to listen to professionals that work for the township. And I know after I speak to you, Ms. Sawant is going to weigh in on what her report has revealed. So I don't know, I'm going to let Ms. Sawant speak first, but I don't know how much further you want to go on with this tonight, absent having the architect at the very least come to speak to us. So you can answer that question for me now if you'd like, or you can wait.
No, we can continue.
Okay, let me go to Ms. Sawant, and then I'm going to see if there's any board members, how they feel. I wouldn't want to see this come to a quick close on you and not work out in your favor. So let me talk to let Ms. Sawant speak to the board now.
Yes. Actually, I got involved with this project when the application was with the zoning officer, because what initially was presented as a method to create more headroom to the attic space turned out to create a new living space. And from what I understand from the zoning department, that they had multiple meetings with the owner, and he proceeded with the construction without getting the construction permits. When the zoning officer was driving past the area, he found that the house was already built. And actually, I'm going to share a picture of the house. Please bear with me. So what you see on the screen is the house that was built. So originally, when the applicant came to meet the came to the zoning department, it was just to raise the attic. And then it turned out that they wanted to, yes, what Ms. Butch said is true. They wanted to level the roof, but then he did build on the living room, creating a new bedroom space. So when I looked at these plans, especially when they were with the zoning department, it was portrayed that this area, which is right above the living space, would also be a storage space. After consulting with me, the zoning officer guided the applicant that this is a living space and it has to be included in the floor area ratio, and he needs to apply for a D4 variance in front of the zoning board. So the proposal to construct on the living room, over the living room, or to increase the height of the attic space, it's already constructed, as you can see. It just needs a siding. But the work came to halt after the owner passed away. And Ms. Budge has been in contact with my department to move forward with this application. I know that from my personal experience, it has been slightly difficult to get in touch with the architect, because when the application was submitted to the zoning officer, they had much more material. There was a section of the house, whereas when it came to me, I just had the survey and the elevation, and I myself have tried reaching out to him on numerous occasions. I have not heard back from him. Luckily enough, the zoning department had retained their original submission, and we were able to get that section, and that section of the house was included in my memo, because what you can see is towards the edge of the roof, there's more than 9 feet. So it's it's clearly a living room. It's a room or a habitable space that has been created over the living room, and it should be included in the FAR. The attic and the roof, the overall height, I mean, has not been altered, but there is no material to support that. It is my assumption, just looking at the elevations and the aerial, it appears that the roof, the total building height did not change. But we definitely need more clarification on that part as well.
I think that the original plans were for the area over the living room for a new master bedroom. If you're looking at this picture, to the right of the house is where the master bedroom is being proposed. To the left of the house, where the 3 dormers are, was the original attic, which is still an attic, but it is enlarged and could be made sometime, or somebody could make it into a living space, because it has windows and it is all, you know, what you're looking at there is all that's done. There's nothing done on the inside.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Ms. Budge, but when it was originally submitted to the zoning department, the plans called out that area as a storage space. And the space above the attic, or the attic area, was also called as attic storage, whereas this area was called as storage space. And that is how the zoning officer even questioned and asked Mr. Budge to come and submit an application to the board. In all fairness, like, you know, the area is livable space and it should be included in the floor area ratio. So what you are asking for is a floor area ratio of 0.40, where the zone permits 0.35.
Right, I understand that. But I also know that it was his understanding or his argument, and I don't agree with him, but he was saying that the square footage of the attic floor has not changed. It was just the roof that was raised. So that is what was the holdup. But I want to go forward with this, with whatever we have to do. I'm not looking to argue any points. This is what it is, and this is what it, you know, what do we have to do now? You know, we're willing to do whatever it is. And like you said, we have not been able to get in touch with his architect. We even had my brother go down to his office because he never returned our calls, or I don't know what was going on with him. But we did want him to appear with us here, but it was just impossible to get hold of him. So what we're looking for now is the variance, and then move ahead with whatever we have to do, whatever building permits we have to get, whatever, you know, we're not looking to shortchange or get over on anything, just what has to be done next. And, you know, what can we do?
Ms. Budge, I just want to make a point of clarification to the board. The attic space, even as it is proposed, has not been included in the floor area ratio. It's only the area that is above the living room that has been included in the floor area ratio that is proposed. So the 0.4 includes just the area above the living room, not the new attic space, because the attic space is exempt from floor area calculations.
Mr. Chairman, if we can have that photograph marked as T1, Township Exhibit 1, just for the record.
Certainly.
I guess Ms. Silverman can do that.
I'll
Ms.
take care of that.
Okay. And Ms. Budge, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you said you tried to contact the architect and you have not been successful in doing so?
No.
When you went to his office, what happened?
My brother went to his office and he spoke to his assistant, and he told him what he needed it, and he assured us that the architect would call us.
All right. And you paid him, I'm assuming, for the services that he's rendered, correct?
Well, these services were done with my brother, so we did tell the assistant if there's any problems or any money owed on it, that just to let us know.
All right.
And he told us there was nothing owed.
All right. And did you request that he attend tonight's hearing as well?
Yes, I did.
And you still have not heard from him? Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Well, it's an unusual situation, Mr. Sachs.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman?
I say it's an unusual situation, and I believe do we still have a question about the side yard setback, Mr. Lawrence?
The side yard setback is the existing setback. They're not adding anything to the side. So it does not trigger a new side yard variance. So most of the variances are existing variances. The only new variance that is triggered by this proposal is the D4 floor area ratio variance.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, let me just jump in once again on this. You know, generally when we have these homeowner D4 applications where there's an expansion or, you know, a significant expansion, I'm not talking about just putting a, you know, enclosing your porch or putting on a deck or a swimming pool, but something like this, which is a, you know, a significant addition to the house. Usually the applicant would have some professional there, either an architect, contractor, planner in some situations, because it is seeking D4 variance relief. We don't have, unfortunately, we don't have anybody who can corroborate what the testimony is that we need to have on the record based on Ms. Savant's memo. So I just throw that in.
Well, that leaves us even more of a quandary then.
Yes.
I'm really thinking, Ms. Budge, you're going to have to put something further on the record, because what you've said so far, you haven't shown anything about the criteria, the positive or negative criteria for a D4. And while I'm empathetic to your situation, you're kind of in a tough situation because it's not your property and you're trying to do your, I guess, sister-in-law a favor. I would strongly suggest, just from my own personal opinion, that you find a professional who's going to take these plans, if not him, someone else, and represent it to the board so that we may, you know, properly assess it and give a fair analysis and vote.
Mr. Sullivan, what I might suggest to Ms. Budge is to reach out one more time to this particular architect. And if it requires my assistance in either calling him or maybe sending him a little letter that his appearance really is required. These are his plans that a decision is going to be based on. It's his license that's on those plans. He really should be cooperating. I find it unusual that, you know, I mean, I will understand that with the COVID-19, you know, business is not usual, but it sounds to me like, Ms. Budge, that you're just not getting any response from this architect, correct?
No, I'm getting no response. And the town has tried numerous times to also contact him. The secretary and the, I'm sorry, Adina have tried to reach him and they are not able to. But what is it that he would be able to tell you about this?
Well, he would have to describe what's being done. He would have to perhaps give us some type of testimony as to the fact that this particular addition to the house is compatible with other houses that are in the neighborhood. I mean, I can't tell you how to prove your case, but I think the architect would know what to say.
He would only be able to tell you the same that I can tell you. You know, that portion of the house that's going over the living area was supposed to be a master bedroom and bath. The house only has 1.5 bath in it right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, do you have any?
He's the licensed professional, though. So he could tell us more.
And I don't know, Ms. Budge, if you have other evidence that you could submit tonight to justify the granting of the D4 variance. It is a use variance, albeit it's probably the most de minimis variance that we tend to deal with. But you know, there's got to be certain testimony. If you look on page 4 of the memorandum from Ms. Savant dated April 17th of 2020. I mean, I think it lays out a roadmap there for your architect, or you can. I don't think you need to get a planner for this, quite frankly. I don't think it's necessary. But certainly, I think the architect could probably carry the day for you on this testimony. So,
all right,
I mean, I'm willing to make a phone call for you. I'm willing to even send a letter if you'd like. I'm thinking that this may not be an application you want to proceed forward with this evening. I could see the house is not habitable, right? No one's living in it.
They're still living in it. My sister-in-law and her daughter are still in the house.
Oh, they still live in the house. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you. Okay, I
The
got
only
you. All right.
part of the house that's affected is the ceiling right above us is over the dining room, and that's where what was raised. The other part of the house where the other extension is didn't affect the living area.
Okay. All right. Well, I make that offer to you. If you'd like me to perhaps get involved, I certainly could do that for you.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
I will reach out to him tomorrow, and then if he doesn't respond back, I'll give you a call and ask you if you can do that.
All right. So Ms. Budge, maybe the best thing for you to do this evening, because you don't want to prejudice your application, because unfortunately, once this board takes a vote on something, one way or the other, it becomes what we call in legal parlance res judicata. It becomes the law of the case, and you'd be stuck with that decision unless you made some modifications to the property. I don't think you want to do that.
Okay, then I'll request to have it heard another time.
Okay, well, let's figure out when, Ms. Silverman, when could we hear this application?
Well, we're gonna have to go to a public portion too.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to go to public first?
No, go ahead, give a date, it's fine.
Okay, Larry, about how long do you think it's going to take to work that?
Well, when's our next meeting? June 4th?
Yes.
I think we could do it June 4th.
Yeah, I think you could put it on for June 4th.
June 4th? Without further notice?
Yeah, without further notice. Obviously, she's not making any modifications to this application. All right, so I guess you can open up to the public, Mr.
Yeah, well, let
Chairman,
me
if
see
you'd
if
like.
any of the board members would like to say anything. If you could raise your hand, I can see you. I'm guessing, okay, Mr. Scogno, I see your hand. Go ahead, sir. You're muted. There you go.
So you have a couple of things that you said were not completed. Is that correct, Mrs. Bunge?
Yes.
The ceiling and the closing of the
Well,
interior?
the ceiling in this room is open. This is the floor to the new bedroom upstairs. This was a cathedral ceiling and they had to lower it. So this part of the house has to be, the sheetrock needs to be put up.
And what about the heating? I noticed that the chimney is gone from the side of the house. I know you're putting siding up, but I don't see the chimney there anymore.
The heat is fine.
Where's the stack?
I don't know.
And the debris, is that still
Doesn't
outside?
the stack go upstairs? I think the stack is run upstairs.
I don't see it in the picture. Okay. And what about the debris that's outside? Is that still there?
That picture is fairly recent because that's a bush that was cut down this week. They're supposed to come back and take that out, but it is still there.
It is still there, yeah.
They were taking that, some of that bush out when I drove by today. So, like they are actively working, I think, or whoever that might be.
Yeah,
Is there any other-
my brother's doing that, and
Okay.
was supposed to come by with his truck and pick it up, but we have to wait sometimes when we have to do things.
I did see someone trying to clean up debris, brush, and so I'm not quite sure who that was.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Scogno. Anybody else want to be heard? Okay. Believe me, I think you're getting the best advice from the board and certainly from the board attorney could probably, who said it succinctly. So you'd be better off at this point getting a new date. I'm going to open a public portion now to this. We'll see if anybody wants to weigh in on it. There is a 30-second delay, so we're going to have to just bear with us for about a minute. If you're interested in this matter, this is located at 47 Woodshore West. If you're interested in this matter for add a level, it's number 39-19Z. Please call in now. I'd ask all board members to just stand by for about 45 seconds to see if Ms. Sawant has any calls.
No one yet. Let's wait.
Okay.
No. 1 hour. You're going to be asleep. Please.
Kim, mute yourself there.
Excuse me?
Was that you? Someone
No.
was unmuted.
Not me.
Okay.
I turned off my camera. You can come and hug me if you want. You didn't see mommy? I turned off my.
Nicole, can you mute yourself?
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Say goodnight for us too.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sophia, they say
Good
goodnight.
for us.
I just want you to know I'm blushing. I'm very embarrassed.
That's okay. We
can
can
see.
see you right now.
There are no callers that have raised their
All right.
hands.
That's good. All right.
Okay,
so-
in that case, we have received no calls to this point. We're going to close the public portion. All right, finally, Ms. Budge, this will be scheduled for June 4th without any further notice necessary. Please try and in any way get a hold of that architect. And if
I will.
not, contact, I guess, through Ms. Silverman, who will probably can get in contact with Mr. Sachs. Does that be good, Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, that's fine. And Kim, you had a question?
Yes, I wanted to make note that another invite will be given to you for that evening also we'll be doing another Zoom meeting.
Okay, Ms. Budge?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're not going to be back in business yet.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate your taking the time and looking at it and tell me,
Well,
How I should
listen, we're interested in all the homeowners here in the community because each and every member of the board is a homeowner and a volunteer. So we want to see the best for the community. We want to see the best for you. And that's why I didn't really want to push for a vote tonight for you.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
June 4th, no further notice. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move right ahead. The next call, the next matter, it's 5-2020Z. This is a Bayshore Development LLC, Block 1, Lot 10. It's R5 zone, 10 Cliffwood Way, to rebuild a single-family house destroyed by Superstorm Sandy. Of course, requiring a C and D variance. Peter Klauser is representing the applicants. Sir?
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, professional staff, and members of the public. For the record, Peter Klauser with the firm Heilbron and Pate on behalf of your applicant, Bayshore Development. I just want to check, Mr. Chairman, Debbie, are you with us in recording?
I'm here.
Okay, all right. I spoke with Larry earlier today, and we're going to have a court reporter record this matter. There is D4 variance relief, and it's a corporate applicant. That is correct, Mr. Chairman. This is an application for D variance and bulk variance relief to rebuild on a piece of property where the previous house was destroyed by the storm. The property is presently vacant. The debris from that home has been removed. This will be new construction. The lot is undersized. This is the R5 zone. It requires 5,000 square feet. We're at 2,850, and we're narrow and a little short. We are proposing a home that is consistent with the area. It's appropriate for the size of the lot, but because of the undersized nature of the lot, it creates variance relief as a result, as to both the side yard, the rear yard, and the floor area ratio. Because the lot is so undersized, to put a 1,300 square foot house on it, it creates far relief. I have two witnesses. We have Sharif Ali, who is pinch hitting for Mr. Coletta, who prepared the survey because he was not available this evening. So we have Sharif here to be able, I know that he's prepared. I know that he's reviewed these materials. I know that we prepped with him, and he's prepared to walk you around the plan. And then we have Christine Bell, who's our professional planner, to provide the support for the variance relief. So if I could, I'd like to start with Sharif, have him sworn, place his credentials on the record, and get him qualified.
Mr. Sachs?
Larry, you're muted.
You're muted.
We'll start that one again.
I'll start it again. Mr. Ali, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Sharif Ali, A-L-Y. I'm the president of Amertech Engineering in North Brunswick.
Sharif, if you could just share with the board your credentials, you're a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey. Have you testified in front of this board before?
Yes, I did a number of times. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, graduated from NJIT back in '89 with 31 years of experience, site planning and subdivisions.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. We really more want that for the people who are watching at home and sometimes in the audience. So we certainly respect your credentials. We accept your expertise.
Thank you so much.
If you could, Vina, do you have the exhibits? Can you bring up the survey of plan?
Sure.
This is property, Chairman, that's located on Cliffwood Way in the Lawrence Harbor section of Old Bridge. It's very near the T intersection with Cliffwood and Bay Shore.
I saw it today.
Okay, thank you. They're not building a house on it yet, right? It is
Nope.
still vacant.
Nope. I was looking to pick up the lot, but I guess somebody's got it already, huh?
That's the architectural plans, and then there is a survey which has the house on it.
Here, I'm not sure if that was submitted to me as a survey, but if you bear with me for a minute, I can definitely pull it up.
It is on your website, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we got this. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah. Sharif, if you could take the board around the property, the dimensions, the variance relief, and where the house is located.
Absolutely. So we, the property is known as 10 Cliffwood Way. Cliffwood Way is located on the left-hand side. As you're traveling on 35, you're going to Lawrence Beach Harbor there. That will be on the left-hand side. And it's in the same block as the waterfront park. And the separation between the lot and waterfront is quite a bit of a wooded area. So the lot is, in question, as you're driving down to Cliffwood Way and you come into the end of the T intersection, we about the third lot before you come to the end on the left-hand side. There is 2 existing homes all the way at the end. And the lot here that we have is typical of lot areas in the area, 30 feet wide and 95 feet deep. That will make 2850 square feet of the lot. Right now, as Mr. Clauser said, that it's vacant. Sandy pretty much destroyed the existing home, and we're trying to rebuild this proposed home. So that's as far as the area and as far as the existing condition. The proposal that we have is a typical of waterfront or along the shore, New Jersey shore area, typical of 3-story high building. And the reason for that is that the first floor will be only used based on the, would be only used for a garage and a storage area. And the reason for that is that we need to put the first floor or the livable floor above the elevation of FEMA. The FEMA in the area, the effective FEMA 2010 shows elevation 11. The preliminary 2014 elevation is 13, and we're going to be 2 feet above that for the first floor or the livable area. Along with that, the building will be about 17 feet wide and 44 feet deep. Attached to the first floor will be a deck somewhere around 180 square feet. It's matching the width of the house with a depth of 13.5 feet. That will also include the staircase. So that's as far as the proposal for the house. With respect to the setback, we are meeting the front setback, which is the 20 feet front setback. The house itself, the structure itself, also meeting the real setbacks. With the rear setback in the area, I believe is 20 feet, and we have the rear setback is 25 feet, and we have 29 feet. The violation that we have in for the lot, we'll talk about the bulk for the lot. So as I indicated, 30 feet wide width is the lot. What's required in the area is 50 feet. The area is 2850 square feet. What's required in the R5 is 5,000. So that is existing non-conforming variances that we intend to seek. That goes along with the lot. As far as the building itself and the proposal that we have, we are seeking for a side setback variance. What's required is 9 feet, and we asking for 6.5 on each side. Also, the ordinance call for 15 feet as far as the two side combined. When you add the 6.5, that will give you 13 feet. So that's another variance that we are seeking. We're also looking for the requirement in the R5. It talks about 2.5 story, 35 feet high. We have 3 story. And that's, as I said, it's a typical of the area along the whole entire Jersey Shore line where everybody's lifting their home above elevation 13, and you need to be at minimum 2 feet above that. That will bring you to 15. So the area at the bottom, you can use it as an open area, or you can have it as a garage and a storage, and that's what we have. And that's the reason that we have that 3 feet, the 3-story high building. If you look at the house to the right, if you're looking at the lot and the house to the right, this proposed house will be identical to that house that was already approved on the right of this property. 3-story high, typical size, as far as the width, as far as the depth. So that's as far as the side and variance and the height variance. We also have a FAR, floor area ratio variance that we are seeking. My calculation, it shows that we exceeded it by 600. So what's permitted is 0.4. We have 0.46. The number that I got from the architect as far as the 2-floor combined is 1,308 square feet. So if you take that and divide it over the lot area, we'll give you 0.46. So that's as far as the FAR. We also have some accessories variances got to do with the deck and the AC unit. The deck, the ordinance is calling, it calls for when you have a deck 2 feet above the ground, you should have a minimum of, I believe, 7 feet to the rear and the side. Since the deck is going to be leveled with the first floor at elevation 15, so that will increase the setbacks based on the ordinance to 21 feet. Obviously, we don't have that. We don't have quite a bit of, we don't have that lot depth of 100 feet that will give us that. So based on that, we are, the deck setbacks to the rear will be 15.5 feet, and to the side will be the same as the building, the main structure or the principal structure, which is 6.5 feet. So that's so you could say this is 2 additional variances got to do with the deck We also have an AC unit will be located on the left-hand side of the building, and it's going to be 8 feet above the ground, 36 inches by 36 inches. So the setback to the side for the AC unit will be about 3.5 feet. That's another variance. So this is pretty much all of the variances that we have for the lot. I believe I covered all of them.
I think you got them all, Sharif. You did.
Yes. So with respect to the sewer and water, we'll be maintaining using the existing sewer and water. There's electric, there is gas out in the area. We're going to have a paved driveway that will be 1 car paved driveway, and we also having 2-car garage under the building, and that will make a 3-car garage based on the 3 bedrooms. We are meeting the residential site improvement standard. So I believe that I did cover everything that as far as the existing and the proposal. And if you would like me to go through the report, the planner's report, we can go through that item by item, or if you want to select certain items, we can cover that too.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the pieces of information that was asked in the report that I know that we addressed, the architect confirmed that the height of the building is 33.5 feet, so we don't need any variance relief for that. That's correct?
That is correct.
We clarified the square footage of the building. That was a question that was in the report. You identified there'll have to be a raised platform for the AC unit, which we identified, and that'll require a setback to that of 3.5 feet, where I guess the traditional setback is what's required. That's in the zone, but that'll be 3 point, but only where the raised platform is for the AC unit.
That is correct.
There was a question just to confirm that on the first floor, the appropriate FEMA materials and block and slab, the flood resistant materials will be used. That's correct?
Yes, so the ground floor, you call it the first floor, I call it the ground floor.
Ground floor, you're right, ground floor.
Yes, will be typical construction that meets the current building code and FEMA guidelines. And it pretty much consists of a concrete slab. That's what we have. It's enclosed area for the garage and the storage area, but we'll have the typical vent for flooding. Will be class 4 and 5 flood resistant materials. I believe the building will be will be constructed out of concrete masonry, or it could be in place concrete walls or superior wall. But my understanding from looking at the architectural here will be masonry built concrete blocks.
Okay. There's a request in the report that the applicant explore the FEMA flood certification. We have that. You reviewed that, and I sent it in to the board earlier this week. So that we did that.
Yes,
that's complete.
That is correct.
There's no county approval for this application. You did indicate that there's an application that is to be filed with Freehold Soil, but you anticipate that'll be exempt.
Yes, it's an exemption application. We have less than 5,000 square feet. The lot itself is 2,850, so that will be definitely exemption.
And the lot to the left is vacant, and our client has advised us that the property records for that lot show that it was purchased with Blue Acres money, and it's unlikely that it would be developed.
Yeah, and as I indicated before, just about all the lots in the area, they're about 30 by 95.
Actually, Mr. Clauser, it can't be developed if it was purchased with Blue Acres, so we don't have to worry about that.
I have trouble ever saying never. I can't say it as much as I want to say never. I just say it. Unlikely makes me feel better when it comes out of my mouth.
That's all right. I can say never because the purpose of Blue Acres was to prevent structures from being built too close to the water. So right. I don't think we have to worry about it. And just one other thing, Mr. Clauser, I'm going to have Ms. Silverman mark the survey as A1, and we'll mark the plans as A2.
That's fine. These are the submission materials. And if you want to mark them, they are, but they haven't been altered, but they're what was submitted as part of the application.
Thank you.
And that, Mr. Chair and members of the board, is why we had elected to put the AC unit on the left side of the building rather than put it between us and our neighbor, put it on the open side of the building. And Christine will touch on that. I have no further questions, and Mr. Ali is available to you and the board's professionals to answer any questions. I think it's pretty straightforward. Try to sit it on the middle of the lot. We're dealing with the undersized nature of it and tried to have a reasonably sized house there.
It sounds so, and it looks like it's from the picture, from the architectural, it's going to be just like the one opposite it.
Yep, that's the idea. Not asking for anything we don't think is right for the area.
Anybody doesn't know where this is. If you were familiar with where Garrity's was, it's right. It's the last street before you would go into the inlet right past the beach. So when you come off 35, it's the only right-hand turn you can make, and it's only 1 block long. So that it gives you a reference point. Ms. Sawant, or are you going to handle this? Is Ms. Shapiro going to handle anything on this or no?
No, actually, I have reviewed the application, so I can actually comment.
Thank you, please.
So I just want some clarification. According to my report, the house is 1,428 square feet, including the foyer on the ground floor, and the floor area ratio is 0.5. Is that correct?
I know we checked with the architect, and under the livable area, the usable area, he tells us it's 1308. So the floor area ratio that we're asking for is 0.46.
Actually, I did check his architectural. There was some discrepancy. So I went back and checked with our zoning officer too. Our calculations say it's 1428. I mean, 0.46, we can round it up to 0.5 and we are covered.
Yeah, I don't have an objection to that. I mean, the house is the house. If we're looking at the interpretation of it, then it's safer if we have the larger variance relief. That's fine.
And to look at the bigger picture, I mean, I know your planner still has to testify, but just so that it benefits the board. The house, although it's asking for a floor area ratio, I've said this before, many of the lots in the harbor area are undersized to what the zone requires, and we often come across the FAR, the D4 use variance applications where the house is over what is permitted. But if you look at the entire street, there are other houses that have the same scale, the same characteristics as the proposed home. So I'm not grilling you for the slightly higher FAR. It's just that I want to make sure that our resolution accurately says it, and you don't have to come back to the board if there is any minor tweaks.
I appreciate that.
The only one thing I want to say is with the flood elevation certificate, yes, we are in receipt of the certificate. However, I just want the applicant to know that our township's floodplain administrator will review it during the construction phase. We just brought up issues that would trigger a new variance, and we don't want you to come back after he reviews it. But as part of the construction permit process, the floodplain administrator will take a look at the whole application again.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Sawant. Mr. Sachs, before I go to the board members, you have anything?
No, nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any board members, you've raised your hand. I'll be glad to entertain any of your comments or questions. I have nothing else, either, Mr. Clauser, so you can go with your next witness.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Christine Bell. She's a professional planner. We could have her sworn, and then we'll place credentials on the record. Christine, you saw how this went with Sharif, so I'm looking for something similar from you.
Ms. Bell, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
My name is Christine Bell, Bell, and I'm employed by Leon S. Avakian Inc. I'm a professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I'm also a member of AICP. I've been a licensed professional planner for about 6 years. I've testified in front of various boards, including Bradley Beach and Millstone. I also act as the board planner for a number of boards.
Thank you, Ms. Bell and Mr. Clauser. We accept her credentials, we respect them, and we respect her expertise.
Christine, in preparing for this, you have reviewed the plans, reviewed the township's ordinance, master plan, and you've reviewed the area where the property is located, correct?
That's correct.
So if you could, you've heard the testimony from Sharif, the comments from Vina, you've reviewed the reports. Take the board through the proofs necessary to allow the board to grant the relief that's being requested.
Sure. So we are requesting a D4 floor area ratio variance to permit an increase in the floor area ratio greater than what's permitted in the zone district. We're proposing a floor area ratio of, I guess, 0.5, a little bit of an increase from 0.6, but where 0.4 is permitted in the zone. To meet the positive criteria for a D4 variance, we must prove the particular suitability of the site in accommodating the use despite the increase in the floor area ratio over what's permitted in the zone district. The subject property and the proposed single-family home are similar in size and design to the neighboring properties and fit in the character of the neighborhood. In particular, the surrounding houses, the two to the northeast, closer to the water than the property, are have recently been rebuilt and elevated and are very similar in size to the proposed structure. Additionally, the four or so homes across the street have also been elevated or rebuilt and are similar to what we're being proposed. The board's planners report, even dated May 18th, 2020, illustrates this point, stating that the township's R5 zone is unique and a majority of the properties within the zone are undersized and do not comply with the zone bulk requirements. In such situations, it's critical to maintain the overall character of the neighborhood when developing or redeveloping a property. By proposing a structure that's similar in size to the neighboring existing structures, we're doing just that. To meet the negative criteria for this variance relief, we must focus on the impact of the deviation and that the negative impacts of non-compliance with the proposed floor area ratio can be mitigated to the extent that the use will not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. The proposed structure is designed to meet the requirements of the township's flood damage prevention ordinance, which represent a higher standard than which is required by the National Flood Insurance Program and FEMA. The 2017 Master Plan Reexamination Report recommended that due to potential flood hazards and the need to protect vulnerable structures and residents, the township should make it a priority to plan for future storms and flooding. This proposed home is doing just that by building the structure to the township's higher standards. The risk associated with in the flooding of the property is reduced. Further, the proposed floor area ratio will not cause a substantial detriment to the public good. It furthers a number of purposes of the municipal land use law, including promoting the public health and safety, and general welfare by meeting the township's flood damage prevention ordinance requirements and FEMA requirements. Also, to secure safety from fire, flood, panic, and other natural man-made disasters. Also by meeting the borough's flood requirements, to provide adequate light, air, and open space, and securing from flooding for the reasons I just stated, and to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. We believe that the development of this lot in an attractive manner that fits in with the existing character of the neighborhood will be providing a desirable visual environment over that of just the existing current vacant lot. As stated earlier, the applicant also requires a number of C variances. We are requesting variances for the principal structure for the minimum side yard setback, single minimum side yard setback combined. Additionally, the proposed rear yard deck is considered an accessory structure. So we need a rear yard setback and a side yard setback for that. We also need a side yard setback for the AC unit. These would all fall under the C1 variance relief. Boards can grant a C1 variance, proof that a particular property faces hardship due to the shape, topography, or extraordinary and exceptional situation uniquely affecting this specific property. This property is undersized based on the bulk requirements of the zone district. The lot only has a width of 30 feet where 50 feet is required. And this home was designed to be in the center of the lot to really respect the setbacks as much as possible, given the constraints of the existing property. As testified to earlier, the property on one side is developed and the other side has been purchased by Blue Acres, so it cannot be developed in the future. So this is really, they're working with what they have. Due to the narrowness of the subject property, that's what requires these side yard variances. We moved the AC unit to the vacant side of the property to kind of respect the neighbors and make sure they have as much of a side yard setback as is possible to give them. The applicant also requires a variance for the building stories. 2.5 are permitted in the zone district. The applicant is proposing 3 stories, but really that first story is just garage space. So while it is a 3-story structure, that first story is not livable space as per the FEMA and the township's flood requirements. This would be considered a C2 variance. The C2 variance is to grant relief from the C2 variance. I need to prove that the purposes of zoning are advanced by the deviation from this ordinance. And as I stated earlier, I think this application promotes multiple purposes of zoning. In particular, the 3rd floor really adds to promoting the health, safety, and welfare. So that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions for me?
I do not. Thank you, Christine. So I think that with regard to the bulk variance relief that you identified, especially the C2 variance relief, I think what you're echoing is that the overall development promotes a number of purposes of the municipal land use law, and that testimony flows right to the C2 variance as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a better zoning alternative and really promotes, a safer environment.
Mr. Chair, I think that Christine has done the adequate job underneath the ordinance and underneath the municipal land use law in order to provide the basis that would allow this board to grant relief. So I'm available to you and to your professionals for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser. Thank you, Ms. Bell. Ms. Sawant.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Sachs.
No, I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
No, I thought it was a very concise presentation by the planner. I'm going to go to the board members. If I can see anybody's hands. I see no one. Okay. No one from the board has any questions either, Mr. Clauser. You have any further witnesses tonight, sir?
I do not. That is your applicant's direct presentation. I ask that you open it up to the public, and after that, if I could just have a minute to just sort of sum it up. That's all.
Absolutely. This again is going to go to the public now. If you're watching at home and you have an interest in this application, you should call in and we will give you appropriate time of a minute or two. Please call in now. This is Bayshore Development LLC at 10 Cliffwood Way. They're going to rebuild a single-family house that was destroyed by Superstorm Sandy. Please call the number if we could put it up on the board, Ms. Swan, again. Do you have any calls at this point?
Not yet.
Okay. Could we
Just
put the
bear
number
with
up
me.
again,
Yes,
just in case?
yes,
Thank you.
please bear with me. Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm here. No calls yet. I see no raised hands.
Okay, you satisfied with the time, Ms. Sawant?
Let's wait for 30 more seconds.
Okay.
No raised hands. We can close the
Okay, I
public.
think we've allowed enough time to pass that if someone wanted to call, they could have. I'm going to
Yes.
close the public portion on this matter. Mr. Clauser, your final words?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This board, I know, has seen a number of these applications, very familiar with this area. I presented a handful of them to this board, both rebuilds and additions onto existing homes. Comfortable that this board has a very good sense of why we're asking for the variance relief. Even though there is a number of them, it's all, the idea is to create an appropriate home on these undersized lots and rebuild this community. Your applicant is doing that. I'd ask that you act favorably on the application.
Thank you. I think it's a good plan. It looks good, and I hope to see that area come back down there even better. Board members, absent any final comments, I would entertain a motion for either approval or denial, hopefully approval.
Walker motion.
Motion, Bruce?
Mr. Chairman, I think before we do that, I think we should.
Oh,
vote
I'm
on-
sorry.
Yeah, let's
D-
vote on,
It's an FAR. We need a D4 first.
we need a D4 and then the C variances. So if someone wants to make a motion on the D4, I guess, Mr. Walker, you'll renew that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr.
Mr.
Dewhurst. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Geldof,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes,
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes. Now, the bulk variance is under the Cs. That's the deck side yard, the building height's okay, correct?
Well, the building height's okay, but they need a variance because it's considered 3 stories.
Okay.
2.5 is the maximum, so, but
Okay,
it's a bulk variance.
okay. Side yard combined and side yard single, right? And it's a
Yes.
minimum lot width, which is existing non-conforming, correct?
Yeah, there's several existing nonconformities.
Okay.
Yep.
We can take them all as a group.
Yes,
Someone want to move the Cs?
Motion.
move it.
That was who? I didn't get it.
Connor.
Mr.
Connor,
Connor,
and seconded by who?
Second.
Ms.
Second by-
Kilduff,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Geldof,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
yes,
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Psychowski,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clauser, for your presentation, and thank you to your witnesses. At this time, for those watching at home, we are going to go into recess. Kim, is there anything you want to say before I go into recess?
No.
No, okay.
I would just request all zoning board members to mute and turn off their video when they go for recess.
Okay, turn off your view and your sound. Please, it is right now 9:06. Please no later than 9:11, 9:12. All right, we will be in recess and we'll return. All right, we're at 9:14. We'll just wait a couple minutes. I see there's a few faces missing.
You guys hear me?
Mr. Stoner, could you turn your video on?
Okay, that's what it is. So the host has disabled it. Mine is disabled by the host. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, you can probably proceed as long as Mr. Stoner can hear us.
Yeah, I see we have 7 members that are present. So, Mr. Stoner,
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't, I only see my
Okay.
picture.
All right, as long as you can hear us, that's fine.
Disable me. I don't know what happened here.
All right. All right, as long as you can hear it, that's
on
fine.
the bottom left of this, on the bottom left of the screen, Mr. Stoner, there's a thing that says stop video and start video.
Yeah.
There you go. You're back. Now you're back. Okay. Mr. Claus, are you there?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to call this one then. This is the final application for the evening. This is 37-19Z, Vision, Old Bridge 3 LLC, 105 Mattawan Road, Block 8002, Lot 13. This is for a major site plan preliminary and final with C&D variance. It's for a 5-story assisted independent community. Peter Klaus is representing the applicant. Sir.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your professional staff, and members of the public. For the record, Peter Klaus with the firm Heilbron Pape on behalf of the applicant Vision Old Bridge. This is an application for preliminary and final site plan approval with bulk variance and use variance relief. The assisted living facility portion of the application and the residential use are not permitted in the zone. The applicant proposes to redevelop the property, which is it's that burned out building that's on Old Mattawan Road, between that and the ramp onto Route 18. We actually have some frontage along that Route 18 ramp, but it's blocked off. And then there's a drive on the side of the property, which is School Road, and it runs in between us and our neighbors. The applicant proposes a 5-story building. There will be a basement, which is for storage uses. The first floor is going to be a common area for servicing the assisted living facility. Second and third floors are the beds for the assisted living patients. And then the 4th and 5th floor are studio apartments that are available for rent. There's 56 parking spaces proposed on site. There is a loading area that is proposed. There are site improvements. We have a dumpster. We have parking, drive aisles. We have lighting, landscaping, the typical amenities associated with a site plan. So it's redevelopment of a property that is sat for some time in disarray. This was previously approved as medical uses. There was a fire a number of years ago, and the property owner and the property is sat that way. Your applicant is a contract purchaser of the property and proposes this development. Before we came to you this evening, obviously the application was prepared and filed, and the plans were prepared. We met with your professionals at a technical review committee meeting to address and listen to their comments as best as we could. Myself and Mr. Turner, also the applicant's engineer, had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Hart and review his concerns with regard to the application and his requests. I believe we've addressed those. When we get to Scott, he'll take you through that. The application to be presented is to be presented through 5 witnesses. We have William Zengerle, who's the administrator will be the administrator of this facility, is administrator of other facilities, has very a great deal of experience in this area. He'll be the first witness, and he'll talk about the operations of the site, what his role will be, and just sort of try and clarify and crystallize what is going on the property, what is proposed. Scott Turner from Menlo is our design engineer. He's responsible for the plans. He'll go second and describe the existing and proposed at the site. And we'll run through your professional report with Scott. I'm pleased to state that before the report was drafted, your professionals during our TRC shared a number of their comments, and we were able to address a great deal of them, and I get to say acceptable to a lot of the comments that are in the report tonight. Peter Peretta is the architect who's responsible for the building. We'll have him show you the building he's designed, the floor plans, and obviously answer any questions you have. Frank Miskovich is on board to talk about traffic and parking on site and how we, and the number of spaces we have in relation to the township's ordinance and residential site improvement standards as they apply to this. And then finally, our planner for this application is Allison Coffin. She's not with us this evening. That we know that she had a conflict and was not able to join us. But I felt it was probably unlikely that we would get all the way to Allison anyway. So I was comfortable proceeding with our witnesses that we have this evening. If I could, Mr. Chair, I'd like to start with Bill, ask that he be sworn and share with the board his background in this area, what his role will be, and then we'll get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of kind of how the facility is going to operate.
Mr. Zangali, please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, and affiliation for the record.
I'm William Zengerle, Zengerle. I'm a state licensed nursing home administrator, and I would be the administrator of the assisted living portion of the property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, if you could share with the board a little bit about your history in this field.
Sure. I'm a state licensed nursing home administrator. I've been in healthcare for over 30 years. I've run assisted living, skilled nursing, adult medical daycare facilities. I've also overseen some senior housing. I've consulted to all types of healthcare facilities. I've lectured to professionals and the general public on a wide variety of topics, particularly with senior care and healthcare. I've been through over 200 state, federal, joint commission, and basically every other regulatory type inspection in the last 30 years. And I've assisted quite a number of facilities in New Jersey and several other states, but I also started up, my latest startup facility was the Matawan Adult Daycare in Old Bridge.
And if you could share a little bit about the proposal here and then maybe what your role would be. I know you've stated it, but in the context of the proposal here and what your role will be in that. And I don't want to make you conscious or self as you move around. It seems like your mic comes in and out a little bit. We're dealing with these issues, so I just want to make you aware of that. If you kind of focus in on the microphone, I think it'll help you come through. I want this board to hear what it is that you have to say, nice and clear.
Mr. Klauser, I want the board to hear too, but 1 second, please. Ms. Sawant is fielding a lot of calls at this time. Ms. Sawant, could you please make the announcement to people at home not to call yet?
Sure. Residents who are watching this meeting on the TV, as well as those who are participating in the meeting via Zoom, please note that the chairman will announce when it is time for residents to call in. I noticed that residents are raising their hands. However, this is the time for direct testimony. You will be given a chance to speak. Please be patient. Once the chairman opens the meeting to the public, I will take in calls as I see them. Everyone will get a chance to speak. Please be patient.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. Mr. Klauser, my apologies for interruption.
No, it's the nature of the beast here. We're all dealing with new issues, even to the extent that I asked Bill to kind of stay focused on the camera so that everyone could hear him. Bill, we had reached the point in your testimony, I think, where I would ask for you to describe for the board the proposal and what role you will play with this facility.
Sure. As Mr. Clauser mentioned, we're looking to replace an existing hazard with a brand new facility. The facility would bring something new to Old Bridge. I'd be the administrator of Vision Assisted Living, a boutique meaning small, state licensed assisted living facility specializing in memory care. We'll have an exceptionally strong activities program. The program's designed to provide physical and mental stimulation to the residents of the facility in a safe and supportive environment. The first floor is going to be wide open, pretty much, with support services provided from the ground floor offices and a kitchen. Floors 2 and 3 are resident rooms in a studio configuration, and the top 2 floors are independent studio apartments. We're going to have a medical director, Dr. Ala Katseva, who specializes, she's a local physician, her office is in East Brunswick. She specializes in internal and geriatric medicine. We have a psychiatrist consultant, Dr. Matthew Barnes, who's one of the state certified geriatric psychiatrists. And so that brings us a level of expertise that very few organizations have. Why this project? Starting up Matawan Adult Daycare, I saw a strong need in the immediate area for a memory care facility. On a personal note, I have an 88-year-old retired director of nursing who lives with me. She's my mother. She has Alzheimer's. And dealing with dementia care over the course of the last 30 years has been an area where I've developed a level of expertise as well as satisfaction and enjoyment throughout my career. The long-term care business, as you know and may hear in the newspapers, can be very tough on an administrator as the leader of an organization. But to be the leader of an organization that takes care of people in need, you keep that in the forefront. It's about heart. It's about doing the right professional service for all of the individuals. At Matawan Adult Daycare in Old Bridge, we had about 10 couples that fit into the demographic that we're looking to service. Individuals with Alzheimer's and a caregiver without Alzheimer's, perhaps of the same age, perhaps a son or daughter, perhaps a niece or nephew. And some recently had downsized and taken in a parent to live with them. It could be very physically taxing for the caregiver, and many times the person who is the caregiver passes before the individual with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia. In our situation, ideally, upstairs would be the caregiver, would be able to live right above their loved one. This project will look to be as financially viable as possible with a combination of assisted living as well as apartments upstairs. With this, we can maintain a reasonable rate of payment for a very high level of service for those with memory impairment in a smaller group environment. Our room size, there's 24 rooms in the assisted living. That's a very small number of rooms for an assisted living. People living upstairs would have access to our clinical skills, to our social service staff, if they had a need to coordinate outside services for them to maintain their independence. Some other operational highlights are we'll have family style meals. We have a registered dietitian. We'd also be able to escort residents to their medical appointments, as well as a number of safety and security features within the facility, such as WanderGuard type prevention devices and magnetic interlocks on the doors, things like that, video cameras in the common areas in the hallways. Right now in Old Bridge, there's only one other assisted living, and that's attached to the Reformed Church nursing facility. Really an entryway into the skilled nursing facility. Our team has a commitment to Old Bridge. We understand the citizens' need here in town. We've had a history of support to the community as a whole and community participation. I mean, well operating Mattawan Adult Daycare, we've lectured all over town on senior issues, the library, the YMCA, even the Amboy Bank. We've been to churches and the economic development functions and other community events to be available for support. We've taken phone calls from the general public very regularly. And at the Mattawan Adult Daycare, we're right up the street from the high school. I've spoken to maybe 10 different teachers about their own family situations when it comes to aging, Medicaid population, and things like that. And a lot of these issues come up and people have the same sort of questions about, you know, what is an assisted living? What happens? You know, why does it cost so much and things like that? Our assisted living is affordable as compared to everyone's first choice, which is to remain at home. It costs over $10,000 a month to provide for private care in your home. And that doesn't include meals, that doesn't include housekeeping, it doesn't include access to activities beyond the home, the expenses associated with that. What happens when people run out of money? We're not going to kick them out because we're required to accommodate Medicaid applicants. 10% of our population in the long run will wind up being Medicaid minimum. People worry about wandering and things like that. The people who are going to be in our community are already in the community of Old Bridge. They're at home. In my own care situation at home, just to give one example, my mother's still ambulatory. She walks. She's very smart. She's an experienced healthcare professional. But she may forget that it's nighttime. And we may try to wander out the door. Now in my home, I've done certain things with a lock at night to make it impossible for her to open that door. Now, if there were a fire marshal here, he might have a problem with what I've done to my lock. You can't have a deadbolt lock with a key in it, right, inside your door, without a key in it inside your door, for example. You know, there are people in their own homes right now who wind up calling 911 because of medication mismanagement, dehydration in the summertime, because you don't remember that you didn't have a glass of water today. 50% of the people over 80 years of age have some form of memory impairment. So the average age of a person in the assisted living, in an assisted living in the United States is 83 years old. Upstairs, there are studio apartments, unrestricted, you know, and we are targeting a certain population. You know, they're small apartments. New policeman, a teacher, a professional starting out on their own, just moving out of their own home, returning veteran, and of course, a senior downsizer, who again can get support from our professionals available all the time, full time, not 24 hours a day. I'm going to work a lot, but not 24 hours a day. But they can access these people who can bring that experience that they have to the table for them as a resident of Vision. The other end of it is most people who are caregivers at home are doing it for the first time. And even me, with my experience, and my wife is a registered nurse and consulted all over the place, even for us, it is difficult to not have that team on site to assist in things like bathing, feeding, dressing, encouraging in activities, keeping her active, physically able. The longer that she and any individual can be physically able, the less time, the less likely that they'll have an event where they wind up in a hospital or they wind up in a nursing home. I thank you all for the time this evening.
Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate that. I just want to ask if you can help us with a couple of items. One, I'd just like to clarify. You indicated that Old Matawan, that at the Matawan facility, that you had 10 couples or 10 people that sort of fit the mold for here. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're referencing the fact that that would be 10 people where there could be someone who would be in the assisted living facility and then would have a partner or a caregiver that would live within one of the apartments. It's not that you only feel that you have 10 people that would qualify to use the assisted living facility. Is that correct?
Right. That was 10 out of the population of 70, at that time.
That sort of fit that mold of one's downstairs and one's upstairs.
Yeah, that fit that mold, very close to it. And many of these people had an individual. We actually had two retired nurses. One had a daughter, and she had her mother move in. She was at her wit's end. She had an extended day with us. She wound up moving in to a nursing home. And then another who's still currently attending, or would be if the state would allow them to operate at this time. But who again was living with family, and for them who were also working. And for them, it is not feasible for them to afford 24-hour care in their nursing home, that care in their own home, and not feasible for them to have a sound night's sleep, knowing that mom's okay, being taken care of at night.
And then if you could share just a couple of the mundane details with the board about sort of how are the hours of operation for a facility like this work? And maybe we do have a loading zone. What type of deliveries would you expect and the frequency of them at this facility?
Sure. I mean, obviously we operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. With more staffing during the day, a little bit less in the evening and on the night shift. We would have nurses, though, available 24 hours a day. We don't need a lot of nurses because we're going to have roughly, out of 24 rooms, we might have 30 individual people once we're at maximum capacity in the facility. Now, as far as deliveries are concerned and things like that, we prepare food on site and we want fresh food. So we may have a food delivery twice a week. We have the usual mail that will come in on site to the facility. And then we would get supply deliveries, as we have a large basement for storage areas. So the impact of our deliveries there, maybe once every 2 weeks on paper type goods and other supply needs that we would have for the facility. And you're not talking a massive operation.
What type of vehicles do you anticipate to be delivering the food and your supplies that you'd store in the basement?
I mean, the majority, our food's coming from local, and they would be, a 18-foot box truck, a box truck type delivery. We wouldn't have tractor trailers coming in, things like that.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions for Bill. He's available to you and your professionals to answer any questions.
Okay, Ms. Sawant? Any questions for this witness?
Sure. So can you elaborate on the apartments or the studio apartments that are on the 4th and the 5th floor of the facility? Because from what I understand, and I had stated that in my report as well, that although the intention is that the studio and the apartments would be rented by relatives, there is no stipulation right now that it would be just restricted to the relatives, correct? Which means that those 24 units would be open to anybody who would want to rent in that space. However, the intention is to have a relative live in there, correct?
Correct. They're open to anyone as far as renting an apartment. That's our intent. Ideally, we're not necessarily marketing that way, and plus the size of the unit. These are pretty small apartments. The total square footage, including the kitchen area, which is the front of each room, none of them are over 500 square feet. I don't recall the smallest one. And they do mirror the floor plan of the assisted living units.
So is it fair to say that these are more like studio apartments than a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment?
No, they are all studio apartments.
And we will have Peter come up in a little while, and he'll be able, Vina, to take you through the floor plan and the square footages and describe that. But they are studio apartments.
Sure. I think that's all I have for this witness.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Ms. Shaviro?
I don't have anything specific for the operator, but I just want the board to know that Vina and myself and the applicant and their professionals did meet, and we did review some of the comments that we had in our review memo. So a lot of the operational details were reviewed between the applicant and the township professionals. So we are aware of their operation. I mean, certainly we did get a little bit more detail tonight, which is good to hear. I know that in that meeting, the question of affordable units, we usually require any residential development to provide us with 20% affordable units. Just want to make sure that the units that would be on the top floor would then be 20% affordable. And I believe I had confirmation by the property owner at that review meeting in early March. I just want to make sure that we can get that on the record.
On the record, I will tell you that we will comply with the state law and your ordinance with regard to the set-asides that are required for affordables. We're not asking for any relief from those requirements.
Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Hart, do you have any questions of the operator?
No, I don't, Jim. Thank you.
All right. I don't think I'm missing any of the other professionals, at least for this witness. So, Mr. Clauser, why don't you continue? And thank you, Mrs. Zangerli.
Thank you.
I wonder, Mr. Chair, do we want to open up to the board if they have any questions of Mr. Zangerli?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have no problem doing that now or later, but we can do it now. Any board members, if you just raise your hand near your face. Okay, Mr. Scott, no, you're first. Unmute. Yep.
And Mr. Zingler, you indicate you got 14 one-bedroom units and 10 two-bedroom units. Is that correct, sir?
What in the, well, none of the,
In the assisted living section.
okay. In the assisted living, under the assisted living regulations, they allow for a shared room if you have a certain square footage. The minimum, and it's free space.
So the studio apartment becomes a two-bedroom,
No.
The studio apartment becomes a shared studio apartment.
share studio. It's
Like a
studio,
hospital
but
room.
yet you know. that it's a
Similar,
bedroom.
the same idea of a hotel room
Right.
that has 2 beds in it.
And the number of employees we have,
The total number is roughly around 20 employees.
and they stay on site?
They don't live on site, but
They
yes,
don't live on site.
they're on site during the workday.
Who is overnight there? The doctors there or?
No. Overnight, the state requirements are to have, and this is straight from the state regulations. I have a differing opinion. The state regulations require 1 employee to be awake overnight, no matter what the size of the assisted living is. Okay, in our assisted living, as an administrator who's responsible for staffing and things like that, I'd be a fool to only have one employee in the site, because what happens if they want to go to the bathroom and things like that? So we would have a minimum of 2 staff members on site, and they'd be a certified nursing assistant. In the evening, we would have at least a licensed professional nurse, and during the day, we would have a registered nurse. As far as the clinical side is concerned.
Okay. The, regarding the funds, once the funds run out, one can go to Medicare, right?
Well, you go to Medicaid.
Medicaid, I'm sorry. Would you accept a patient coming into your facility from another facility on Medicaid?
It depends actually on the care level quite a bit. It's difficult to go straight in particular to a facility our size as a straight Medicaid patient. And you'll find that in the majority of this, in all of the assisted livings, except for maybe 2, as someone who tried to start a straight Medicaid assisted living. The reimbursement from the state does not allow you to pay the rent and keep the lights on, as well as staff the facility to an adequate level in the assisted living. You can't do it for $3,000 a month.
You have long-term care there?
Well, it falls within the realm of long-term care as a regulatory definition. But nursing facilities have one set of regulations, assisted living have another, and medical daycare actually falls under long-term care. Long-term care is anything beyond a Medicare stay in a rehab facility.
Right. And you're hoping that maybe the loved ones or the family members would assist with the assisted living person living downstairs.
Well, not assist.
Well,
I mean, we want them nearby and we want them involved. They're not coming in to be isolated from their family.
Yeah, you're hoping,
you're
hoping that one rents upstairs. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
That would be ideal for you.
And for them.
And for them also. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Now, before I ask anybody else on the board, I have to tell those people who are at home, we're getting a lot of phone calls coming in. Now is not the time for the phone calls for those of you who are interested in making comments. Mr. Klauser is the attorney. He is going to bring forth, I think, at least 2 other witnesses. After those witnesses have testified, after our professionals have examined each of them, and after all of the board members may have any questions, then is when the public will call in. That's when I'll open the public portion. So please, you're not going to get answered now, so there's really no need to be calling in at this point. Okay? Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Klauser, go ahead.
No, thank you. If there are more board members that have questions of Bill, he's available. If not, I can move on to Scott.
Okay, Mr. Sachs, you have anything for the operator?
Yeah, actually I do. Mr. Zengeli, I'm maybe I didn't hear you correctly, but the studio apartments, ideally you would rent it out to a family member or a close one of the residents of the facility. Is that what the intent is?
Yes, I mean, that would, for us as the operator, that would be ideal.
Okay, but I also heard some testimony that anybody could rent out one of these units.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, we're not looking to build senior restricted apartments.
In other words, someone who's not related to an individual who might be in that care facility, anybody really could just rent out one of those units, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a screening process that would be involved in that?
As a normal landlord.
Okay. All right. So that I guess that's what triggered Ms. Shapiro's comment about affordable housing, because this is obviously rental units that would be available to the public, is what you're saying.
Yes, Larry, yeah, that's correct. They're and I think Bill, the top 2 floors, do they operate independently? Is there there's a separate entrance, or
yes.
is it? There is
a separate entrance. do one elevator for one side of the facility, one elevator for the other. There's a separate entrance into the apartments. That's also covered under the healthcare side of the regulations.
All right, and that, by the way, is just a policy that you've adopted. That's not something that's mandated by the state.
Now, as far as the Department of Health, it's mandated by the state.
Now, I'm talking about the fact that you could rent out one of these units to someone who's not even related to a patient at the facility.
No, that's just our own policy.
That's what I mean. Okay, gotcha. Okay, all right, thank you. Jim, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. Any other board member wants to question this witness? No? All right, I see none. Go ahead, Mr. Clauser, with your next witness.
Thank you, Bill. You can step down. If we could bring Scott online. Scott Turner's a professional engineer with Menlo Engineering. If I could have him sworn and place his credentials on the record and give some background as to his professional experience. I'm looking for him to be qualified as a professional engineer.
Mr. Turner, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Certainly. My name is Scott Turner, Turner. I'm a principal engineer with Menlo Engineering Associates, located at 261 Cleveland Avenue in Highland Park, New Jersey, 08904. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have over 30 years of experience in the field of civil engineering and land development. I'm also a graduate of the New Jersey Institute of Technology with a Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering.
I know there's a number of the witness, a number of the board members who recognize Mr. Turner, and we certainly accept his credentials and his expertise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott, if you could, Vina, if we could look at our exhibits, Vina, Scott, what exhibit do you want to start with that we can have up on the board? We want to start with our existing conditions. We have an aerial to start with.
Yes, I'd like, Vina, if you could maybe promote me and I will share my screen, if that'll work.
Scott, I have the existing conditions on
Okay.
On the screen already. I'm not sure if you will be in a position to share your screen, but
I'd like to
I
try
have,
if I could. That way I could just use my cursor to kind of help move myself around the screen. Would that be okay? Or would you rather me just do it this way? Either way is fine with me.
I'm not sure if you have the ability unless you are a co-host.
No problem. I'll do it this
to
way, Vina,
share.
not a problem.
Right, but I do have all your exhibits,
Good.
so I can, I have the existing condition, the renderings, and the proposed site plan.
Great. Okay, that's fine. So the first exhibit that's been put up is entitled Vision Stream Assisted / Independent Living Residences at 105 Old Matawan Road. It's an existing conditions exhibit. It's dated May 7, 2020, prepared by my office. We can mark this as Exhibit A1 if you prefer.
Yeah, that's fine, Mr. Turner.
Okay, thank you. So for the record, the property is known as Block 8002, Lot 13. It does contain 0.98 acres. It is located in the EDO-1 zone, which is an Economic Development Opportunity District zone. It's located at the southeast corner of Old Matawan Road, which is also a county road, County Route 527, and a local street known as School Street, which is located on the left-hand side of our property. Old Matawan Road is up on the northerly side of our property. North is straight up, by the way, on this exhibit. The property has about 200 feet of frontage along Old Matawan Road and about 157 feet of frontage along School Street and 218 feet of frontage along the ramp on the southerly side of the property that leads onto Route 18 northbound. It's surrounded by a mix of uses, including single-family residential to the north on the other side of Old Matawan Road. There's also some single-family residences immediately to the east of our property, as well as some commercial space and then automotive uses on the westerly side of School Street that have frontage both on Old Matawan Road as well as Route 18. The site, as described previously, does contain the remnants of what was a 3-story medical office building. It had a 5,100 square foot footprint. It was the victim of a fire at some point in time a number of years ago. I think that building started life out as a school building way back when. The footprint itself is approximately 88 feet wide along the Old Matawan Road frontage and 57.5 feet deep, running front to back from Old Matawan Road to that Route 18 ramp. There are existing driveways that service the property currently, one off of Old Matawan Road, more towards the northeast corner of the property, and then another one at the southwest corner of the property, which lead out to School Street. School Street is a dead-end street that used to, at one point in time, I believe, have access to Route 18, to Route 18's ramp, but that has been closed off for quite some time. So it really is a dead-end street. And of course, on site to support that existing building or a parking lot, an existing parking lot that's in pretty bad state of disrepair, and with 34, at one point in time it had 34 existing parking spaces. In its existing condition, the site has 67% impervious coverage and 12% building coverage. So Vina, we can move, unless someone has a particular question about the existing conditions and surrounding properties, we can move to the proposed site plan.
Jim, I think you, okay. Mr. Turner, was there a question you asked?
No, I just wanted to know if there's no other questions about the existing conditions, we can go to the, yes, there we go, the site plan. Perfect. Okay, Vina, if you could just zoom out a little bit, just so I can see the title, just to get it on the record. Thank you. Okay, this is another exhibit that was prepared by my office. It's Vision Stream Assisted / Independent Living Residences, 105 Old Matawan Road. It is a site plan exhibit dated May 7, 2020, and it is a Google aerial image with the proposed site plan rendered on top of it, along with the rendered version of the proposed landscaping as well. So as described by Mr. Clauser, the proposal here on behalf of the applicant is to raise the existing building that's there and build a brand new facility, including a 5-story mixed-use building, which would contain approximately 6,991 square feet per floor. It would have a footprint of 120 foot in width, again, parallel with Old Matawan Road. The building would be about 60 foot deep, running parallel with School Street. The building area in total would be 34,955 square feet approximately, with a building height of 60 feet. As described, floors 1 through 3 would be the assisted living floors. Floor 1 is the common space as described, and floors 2 and 3 would be the living quarters for the assisted living facility that would contain 12 one-bedroom units per floor for a total of 24 units on floors 2 and 3. Floors 4 and 5 are the independent living studio apartments. They would contain 12 one-bedroom units per floor, again, for a total of 24 units. So there would be 48 units in total of studio apartments in total for the proposed development. There would be entrances into the building on both sides, the north side of the building as well as the south. The rear, what I'll call the rear entrance, would be the entrance that would be utilized for the independent living residences. And the rear entrance that I'm referring to is the entrance that's facing the Route 18 ramp side of the building. The building will also have a basement. The basement will be limited to just storage only and will be used for nothing else. The proposed building is sitting approximately in the same location as the old footprint. It is, of course, a little bit bigger. The building will be set back 50 feet from Old Matawan Road and 13 feet from School Street. We have, again, 2 driveways into the site, essentially in the same location as the existing, although they'll be reconstructed, of course, to comply with current township and county standards. And we're going to provide on the property a brand new parking facility with 53 9-foot by 18-foot off-street parking spaces, along with 3 ADA compliant parking spaces that will service the development. So we have a total of 56 parking spaces on site. And when you compare that to what would be required for New Jersey residential improvement standards, we would comply with that requirement of 56. And we've also done an analysis comparing it to the municipal land use ordinance, which would require 58. So we are too shy when you would calculate this to the township standards. The property in itself, in the proposed condition, would contain 67.6% impervious coverage. That is a marginal increase, in my opinion, of only 233 square feet when you compare that to the existing condition, which equates to a 0.6 increase in coverage. Proposed building coverage is 16.4% compared to the existing of 12%, equates to approximately 1,898 square foot of increase, or 4.4% on the property. And of course, the property, as we develop it and we prepare the site plan, not only have we provided the conforming driveways and adequate circulation to support the proposed project site, we've provided pedestrian access from the parking lots into both main entrances by way of concrete sidewalks that will provide safe and adequate access into the building. In addition to that, we are proposing a freestanding sign that will be located out at the Old Matawan Road entrance. That sign is proposed at 20 square feet, 6 feet high. It will be set back 20 feet from the right-of-way, and it will be externally lit by way of a ground-mounted light. We believe that sign is completely in compliance with ordinance requirements. Down at the southwest corner of the property, the corner of School Street and the Route 18 ramp, you'll note that we provided a refuse and recycling enclosure. And we also, down on the southerly side of the site, has provided a pad for a generator, which will of course comply with all of the NJAC Title VII noise standards, and will be completely tested in compliance with minimum requirements. We are also providing for the property in support of the loading operations. You heard some testimony in regards to how much loading we can anticipate here, which is frankly pretty minimal, with just single unit box type truck deliveries. We have provided a loading zone on the westerly side of the building. We had a little bit of a challenge with the loading spots because of the size of the site, and how to support the building with all of the other necessities. So what we've done is we've provided a loading zone that's located off of School Street, and that provides, in my opinion, proper circulation through the site. Truck deliveries would come in off of Old Matawan Road. They'd access the property. They'd work their way around the building in a clockwise fashion, and then they would come lead out the driveway from School Street, and then access the loading zone in that particular area along School Street. So we are certainly acknowledging that we are utilizing some of the right-of-way of School Street for the loading operations. In order for us to do that, we have agreed at this point to provide all of the improvements along School Street that Ms. Shapiro has asked us to do in her staff report, which will include a full mill and overlay of School Street with a new stop bar, new signage. We're going to also remove and replace the existing curb that we had on the site to propose to remain. Some of that curbing will of course be removed and replaced with new curbing around the loading space in order to get that to operate functionally. With respect to the utilities, all of the utilities are available to the property. Of course, water, sewer, gas, and electric will all be done by way of underground feeds. There'll be no overhead electric brought to the site. Stormwater management, there is some stormwater management already on the property that will be either maintained, modified, or enhanced as needed to comply with current standards in order to adequately shed water off of the parking lots and get it collected and drained off the site. Since we are a development with less than a quarter acre of additional impervious coverage and less than an acre of new disturbance, we are not considered a major development under the New Jersey stormwater management rules. However, we are subject, as Ms. Shapiro pointed out in her report, that we are subject to compliance with section 250-78 in your land use ordinances, which require certain standards for a non-major development. And we certainly will agree to comply with those standards and provide Ms. Shapiro with whatever calculations and plan documentation that she requires. We've also provided a lighting plan that we believe complies with all municipal ordinances. There'll be LED single post top fixtures. They'll be kept at a lower height of 17.5 feet for the mounting height. We've also provided some wall mounted fixtures that are mounted at 13 feet to provide adequate lighting levels for the development. And we believe we've done that. I believe there was a couple of comments in the staff reports about some lighting modifications at the driveway intersection to comply with municipal standards, and we certainly will agree to do that. Of course, we've provided a landscaping plan as well to the board for their review and your professionals as well. We are providing 16 deciduous trees, 22 evergreen trees, and 3 flowering trees. We've also provided 162 shrub plantings and 187 ground cover plantings. And they are depicted on this exhibit here. The larger green circles, of course, are all of the larger trees. And then there's some other purple and pink trees that are maybe, some of the other flowering trees. And we've got a lot of the smaller shrubbery materials that are up along the building, as well as surrounding the perimeter of the parking lot. We're also planning on saving 5 existing trees along the easterly property line. That's always a challenge, as you know, during construction, but we will do our best to do that. And we'll take the safety measures that are needed in order to try to save those trees. There are landscape comments within Ms. Sawant's report. We'll go through them once we get to the staff reports, but I believe we can comply with the vast majority of her requirements. We are, as I mentioned earlier on, we are again in that zoning, the EDO 1 zoning district. There are a number of variances associated with the application. I'm going to put on record what those variances are. We of course have a planner that will provide the supporting testimony for that. And the easiest way I felt that would be to do this would be to refer to the staff report that's dated March 13, 2020, from Ms. Sawant, the town planner, and Ms. Shapiro, the town engineer. And I'm going to just jump right to page 4, which starts out the listing of the variances. I just think it's the best way to make sure I don't miss any. I'm looking at particularly item H, variances. Of course, the property needs a use variance. That's why we're in front of you folks for the application. We do require a D1 use variance for the assisted living and the independent living facility, as they are not a permitted use in the EDO 1 zone. The application also requires a number of D4, 5, and 6 variances for exceeding the floor area ratio, density, and height limitations. If you move on to page 5, there is a very nice table of variances that we are required to obtain. And the very first one is minimum lot area required is 1 acre. The existing condition is 0.98 acres. Of course, that's an existing nonconformity that we really have no control over. The next 6 are all under section 250-38.1A6A. It's minimum front yard along School Street. 15 feet is required, and we're providing 12.99 feet. Maximum front yard along a state highway is 50 feet, and we're providing 60.14 feet. So we're actually a little bit further away from the state highway than what is permitted in the zone. It's a bit of an unusual requirement. And then we have another maximum front yard along Old Matawan Road, which is also a requirement of 50 feet, and we're at 50.28 feet. We have a maximum building height permitted at 2 stories or 30 feet. And we are, of course, proposing a 5-story building at 60 feet in height. Floor area ratio of 0.3 is permitted, and we are at 0.99. And we have a minimum landscape area ratio of 0.40. The existing condition is 0.29. We're proposing 0.32. So we're making that existing nonconformity a little better, although we still require that variance. And then we're into a different section now for a landscape buffer, section 250 38.1A 6E3 requires a 15-foot landscape buffer. We're proposing 12.99 feet, and that is along School Street. And we have a maximum dwellings per gross acre. Of course, residential is not permitted. We have a density of 49 units per acre. And a minimum parking spaces, we are required by municipal ordinance to provide 58, but we are proposing 56. But again, I would indicate that we are compliant with the New Jersey residential site improvement standards with regards to parking. And finally is a loading area location. Of course, they are not permitted in a public right of way, and we've got a portion of our loading zone within the dead end public right of way of School Street. And we're also required to seek a waiver for the parking stall size at 9 foot by 18, as opposed to your requirement of 10 foot by 20. In support of that waiver, I would indicate respectfully that, this is not a high turnover parking lot. We certainly don't believe there's going to be a lot of changeover from people moving out and about. It's not a shopping center. It's not a retail environment. And again, you'll hear additional supporting document from our planner and our traffic consultant. But also 9 foot by 18 stalls are recognized standards throughout the state of New Jersey for facilities like this. And again, New Jersey residential site improvement standards do permit 9 foot by 18 foot parking stall sizes. Other than that, Peter, do you want me to do any other direct testimony, or we can go right into staff reports? That's my.
Yeah, let's go to the staff report. If I could, I'll do the first one. If we go right to page 7, there was a request that if the board should act favorably on the application, that there be a restriction that the 24 assisted living facility units could never be converted to apartments. And of course, that's the nature of the use that the applicant is requesting.
Correct.
Scott, there was some confusion when we filed the application and when the zone changed, that this changed from a CN zone to an EDO3 zone. So you'll update your plans to reflect that. I see that you've corrected it on the rendering that we're all looking at here.
Yes, we needed to do that in order to go through the exercise of what was required in terms of variance conditions. And it was just a matter of timing in terms of applications submitted versus when that happened. But our plans will certainly be updated to provide all of the required documentation for the EDO zone.
I'm going to skip parking because we have a traffic expert who will address parking. You identified the number of spaces, but I'll let Frank make the arguments with regard to parking. Loading, you discussed the loading space and the proposed improvements along School. Number 6 was a condition that the basement be for storage only, and that's, again, if the board should act favorably, that's a condition that's acceptable. The sign is compliant as to its area and its location. There was some question in the report as to how it would be lit and what the lettering would be, and we're comfortable that we can come up with a lighting scheme for the sign. You have it right now, and that we can have the appropriate lettering on the sign so it's not too wordy. I'm very comfortable we can come up with a sign that Vina and Nicole will find acceptable.
Yes, I agree with that.
The sidewalks, the proposed improvements along Old Mattawan Road, the applicant will make those improvements subject to the county's approval and their restrictions.
Correct, and we will, in all likelihood, be required to provide a sidewalk along Old Mattawan Road. It is always a county requirement.
And you indicated earlier that, and then all the improvements that Nicole has requested along School Street, we make as well.
Correct.
And while we have this exhibit up to the east of us, to the east of this property, or excuse me, to the west of this property, is a small, almost, it's a trapezoidal type lot that has a building on it. And there are, our neighbors to the left of us reached out and asked if we would include signage on their property, that the parking is only for their property and that all others would be towed, and it's just for their uses. So those units to those properties to the left of us, we've agreed that we would do that. My commitment to our neighbor who reached out to me, Adrian Kroll, on behalf of those property owners, was that I would put that on the record. So while we're talking about conditions and we're talking about that area of the property, I just wanted to put that on the record. It's a private issue, but I promised that I would say that on the record, so it would be part of it and could be enforced by our neighbor. Talk about the landscaping a little bit and your belief as to our compliance and what, if any, kind of relief in that section that you think we need.
Sure, we will work with Ms. Sawant's office in providing any additional landscape improvements that are required. We are going to agree to comply with all of the sections that are noted in 9A through D, and as well as D1. The only comment in here that I will make is under item B. The very last sentence is an effective use of earth berms and existing topography is also encouraged as a component of the landscape plan. It does not comply. I would, request that we not be required to provide any earthen berms. We really don't have a whole lot of room to do it. That green area that's in between the front of our building and Old Mattawan Road, there are some stormwater management structures currently in that area. We will enhance that property, that area with landscaping, and we can provide some additional landscaping in there as well in order to comply. But we would ask that we do not be required to provide any particular earthen berm. The property is just not, in my opinion, big enough to accommodate anything that would make a whole lot of sense.
Comment 10 about the street furniture, the bicycle racks, and that's acceptable. It's something we can do and get on the plan.
Yes. Yep.
The lighting comments you said you can comply with?
Correct, yes.
The backup area, there's a waiver that's called out, but you advised me that you can revise the plan and we won't need that waiver.
That's correct.
Affordable housing, I indicated earlier, we will comply with the law of both the state and the township's ordinances. Not asking for any relief. Why don't you just take us, Scott, right through the engineering comments? I think they're all you, and if they're not, we can always stop, except for variance relief, obviously.
Sure, yes, and most of the comments in here, we are certainly going to comply with item 1A, 1 and 2, and then item B. I think the testimony was provided regarding the hours of work. In terms of noise and air pollution, of course, all of those noise ordinances will be required, will be complied with. The noise in terms of the construction of the property, if that's the particular question, will certainly be mitigated to the maximum extent practical. They'll follow all of their construction hours in terms of when they can start construction and when they have to end. We've already complied with the fact that we're going to provide a basement that will only be used for storage. Item D on page 11 in regards to the tax map, Ms. Shapiro and I had a discussion about that, and it turns out that the tax map was drafted in error, so there's really no other requirement to address that condition. We'll of course provide the as-builts. We're going to page 12 at this point. We will comply with items 2A and 2B. We've discussed under C the variance and the waiver request for the parking spaces and the sizes. We're going to agree to comply with the curb return radii under E. Item F, we're going to comply. Item G is a comment in regards to the fire hydrants and that we need to comply with fire marshal requirements. We had met with Mr. Hart on this project, and we've agreed to provide a hydrant on site. We went through the location with Mr. Hart, and as well as the fire department connection and other improvements as well. So that is being addressed. The ADA accessible sign locations will be complied with. That's item H on page 12. And we're going to page 13. Ms. Shapiro asks us to revise the plans to reorient the dumpster so it's located towards School Street as opposed to Old Mattawan Road. And that's just a simple flip of, taking it and rotating it. That's not a problem. We can certainly do that. And that way it doesn't interfere with any of the parking spaces that are on site. Providing truck turning templates, we will certainly do that. We've done the templates for the fire truck. We've done them for the anticipated loading vehicle, and I believe we've already submitted them as well, but we will do that again. All of the stormwater comments under item 3 on page 13, we will comply with, so I won't go through and bore everybody with all those specific details, but Ms. Shapiro, we will address them with you. We're going on page 14, utilities as item 4, lighting and landscaping, item 5, will comply with all those requirements. And then moving on to 6, construction details and miscellaneous. We have no issue with any of that. We'll comply. And I believe the last one is in regards to providing the contribution for the drainage and transportation as needed. We will certainly comply with that, along with the performance guarantee and inspection fees. So that's it. And so for the most part, we're going to comply with all of the necessary requirements in the staff report.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Chair, unless there's anything else that you want to add affirmatively, Scott, you feel that you missed in your outline. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions, but Mr. Turner is available to your professionals on the board for any comments they may have.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser, and thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Wan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Actually, my question is not for Mr. Turner, it's for Mr. Clauser. Peter, can you just go back and explain about the signs for the neighboring property?
Sure. I received a call, I suppose, in response to our 200-foot notice, where our neighbors asked if we would install signs in their parking lot that say, parking for our business only, and these others would be towed. I guess they had a concern that they thought maybe there would be, I can only guess that maybe they thought there would be overflow parking from our site onto theirs. And in order to mitigate that, they asked if we would agree to do that.
So those signs would be placed by you on their property?
Yes, at their request. That's what they asked for.
Okay.
So we have no issue with doing that.
Because for a minute, I thought it was the other way around. Their signs would be on your property.
No.
So
no,
that's why I wanted to.
Adrian Kroll, you've all seen the signs, the big yellow signs out there, represents those property owners, and asked if we would do that. And we said, of course.
Okay. And with the landscape, Mr. Turner, with the landscape plan, you said that you will reach out to my office and we can work out together and probably add some more landscaping if required, correct? Because
Correct,
as of now,
yes.
there are some waivers that you need. I understand a 9B related to berms. I agree with your comments that the site is small and there isn't enough room to add in berms. So that would be a waiver. Other than that, I know that Peter has testified before about the affordable housing part. The backup areas won't be a waiver any longer. You would change, you would amend your plan to eliminate that waiver, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I think that's all for Mr. Turner.
Thank you.
Ms. Shapiro.
I only have 2 comments. I think a lot of it was addressed and a lot of it was helpful that we had that initial meeting in early March to go over in detail some of our comments. But I think it might be advantageous to put a note on the plan and a detail of the signs on the neighboring property to ensure that it doesn't get missed during construction phase. So our inspectors know that that should be checked off
Sure.
as constructed. So
Yeah,
I would,
sure.
okay. And then the only thing I want to make note of is I appreciate the work on School Street, and I just want you to know that the pro rata share, transportation pro rata share will be credited with the amount of work that you do on School Street. So know that that calculation will then subtract the amount of work on School Street. And I just wanted to put that on the record. Other than that, I believe Mr. Turner had identified all the items in my report, everything with the exception of the fact that I had to investigate the origin of that site triangle that was on the corner of School Street that was identified on our tax map. And because of this application and because of that investigation, it has since been removed from our tax map to correct it, as it does not exist. And so with that, I have no other comments.
Thank you, Ms. Shapiro. Mr. Hart, any questions for this witness?
Yes, Jim, thank you. Scott, Nicole, and Vina, what School Street is that? Township? Can it be marked no parking? Because my concern is still, even though we met back in early April, my concern is the overflow is going to park parallel on School Street, and that will cause a problem with circulation. Can we mark it no parking fire zone or no parking at all if it's a township road?
There are municipal streets that have parking restrictions on them. They have to be identified in our ordinances. Actually, I think it's under Chapter 10 of our township code that provides restrictions for parking. Should that be your recommendation, Mr. Hart? I would certainly co-sign on that and put that on there. It would be on both sides of the street as well. So that would affect the neighboring properties across the street. So I had looked at, I think, the Google Earth imagery. I do believe that there were vehicles that were parked opposite of this property from some of the aerial imagery that I had seen. So I don't know if you want to restrict it just to one side of the street.
Well, Nicole, just to cut you off real quick, the concern is the building's been burned down since 2007. So of course, the dentist office to the left of this picture that Vina put up would be parking there. Nobody else, the little motorcycle shop, which is that place that Peter was talking about, the signage, he doesn't get enough traffic flow. It's the dentist office that is only now one person in a building was parking there because nobody else was in the building. So I don't think it'd be a problem. That whole side, the left side, north side of the street be no parking, since the plan showing the loading zone being most of it taken over by the loadings on the street, you know? So if we could do that, if you need something in writing from me, request that. I would rather do that. Then I wouldn't have to be too concerned. The building itself, when it burned 13 years ago, there was plenty of circulation around it for the trucks to get around. Even though he's adding some square footage, there's still plenty of room to get us around. It's just, I'm concerned with the staffing during the day. And if there's tenants that they're going to park out there on the street, or visitors, especially if I have a tenant on the 4th floor and I get a visitor, they're going to park in the street. So if we could do that amongst ourselves, that would work great. That would make me a lot more comfortable.
Certainly, if Mr. Hart, if you could send me just an email or a letter just saying as per our zoning meeting and just your thoughts on this, if you could provide me those thoughts and I'll pass that along to council.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah, Nicole, I was gonna say, that's something that's gonna have to be acted on by the township council anyway, with an ordinance, so.
Okay, and the only other thing is, as Scott mentioned, he did address the hydrant, the fire department connection, the striping. So we did have a good meeting with that. So, other than the school road, school street, everything else, I'm not too concerned about at all. The building was a 3-story building with a roof, so it was almost 4 stories before it burned the top off. So, it's really not growing as much as everybody thinks it is. So, I have nothing else, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, you're from your memo February 19, you're all good then, right?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Fire Marshal.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Tom.
Ms. Drum, I know that Mr. Miskovich is going to come up later. Did you have anything at this point for this witness?
Carol, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I just have I think two minor comments.
Go right ahead.
I did issue a review letter dated March 10th, 2020. There was a few minor site plan comments. They were really just details, and I'm sure Mr. Turner doesn't have a problem complying with them. That's number
correct.
one. That's fine. Number two is regarding the parking requirement. Mr. Miskovich issued a letter, and the parking requirement that he came up with is a little different from your testimony, Mr. Turner. So what I would suggest is between now and our next meeting, maybe work between Vina, my office, and your office, just to come down with exactly what the number is, just for the record.
Yes, we will do that. And I wanted to keep my testimony specific to what we submitted on our plans.
Understood.
I certainly acknowledge the fact that, yes, there was a report issued by Mr. Miskovich, and he will provide the testimony in regards to that letter to support what he indicated, and we will do that between now and the next meeting.
That's it. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drum. Mr. Lavallo, are you there? I see you issued a report too. Do you have anything for this witness?
Just if I heard the testimony before, it was regarding trees that they have numbered as 8 through 12. They made a comment they were going to try to protect those. Now, did Mr. Claus, have you received my report of March 16th?
We did. Scott, you have it too as well, right?
I have it. Yes, I did.
Yeah, I just want to hear the comment on my request was to remove those trees because they don't provide any benefit to the site. It would be better served if you were to remove those and plant new trees in their place.
That would be certain. We can certainly do that. I think it's probably makes more sense, Mr. Lavallo, because they are going to be difficult, as I had mentioned, to save because of the proximity to the proposed curb line and other activities on the site. So we will agree to do that.
And the other comment is the on off-site on the northwest corner, there's a very large tree that's just off your property, and I believe it might even be on DOT property. But it is a large heritage tree, and it's very close to your site. And I wanted to make sure that your construction activity does not impact the root system of that tree because it is an extremely large tree.
Yes, that is on the southwest corner of the property. It's off property. It's not on our property. You're right. It is in the public right of way of the state highway. And we are not doing any activities. There's no significant change in grade in that area. And so we should have no issue whatsoever in order to save that tree. I'm looking at it now.
Okay. Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, that's the extent of my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lavallo. I'm going to go, Mr. Sachs, before I go to the board, do you have any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. Board members, for this witness, just Mr. Scogno, I see your hand. You can go first.
Hi.
Mr.
My
Walker?
question, yes, Mr. Turner?
Yes.
My question is for the landscape for the outside. I don't see any provision for seating or relaxing outside for the residents. Is that something in your plans?
No, and that's more of an operations type thing. I'm not sure. Honestly, we weren't asked to provide any of those types of enhancements. I think they want to try to keep that, at least my opinion is I think they want to try to keep that inside the building and do all those types of improvements inside the building. We will provide the bicycle rack that's been asked, but we haven't been asked to do anything else in terms of external seating areas. I mean, the only real option we would have with something like that would be in between the building and Old Matawan Road.
Yeah, most of these facilities you go by, you see them sitting outside, talking to each other, collaborating, and just wondering, there's no provision for that. Huh?
We'll take that into consideration, and I will certainly ask our client and see what he wants to do, if anything.
My second question, Mr. Clausen, did you happen to mention affordable housing?
Yes.
And what is that?
Your township has an ordinance that
Yes.
requires a certain amount of set aside, and there are state regulations. And your professionals in their report asked if we would be complying with those ordinances to provide affordable housing and or payments in lieu of affordable housing. Whatever the law is that we are required to provide, we will provide.
So many units, in other words.
Correct.
For affordable housing.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Walker, you're next.
I'm not sure who could answer this question, but will there be any bulk oxygen tanks on the outside of this facility?
That's something that maybe Mr. Zengerle can answer. I don't know.
Bill, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Because you're sworn still, so it might be easy for you just to chime in and answer.
Yeah, there'll be no bulk oxygen tanks on the exterior.
Okay, thank you. One more question. I know you cannot guarantee that tractor trailers will not be on that facility, especially if you're dealing with food service distributors like US Foods, Cisco Food Service, whatever, and even on your initial loadout when you move in, should this project go forward, can they negotiate around that building and wind up on the loading zone?
The answer is yes. I can tell you from a practical standpoint, a tractor trailer could negotiate it, because I think we've all seen what tractor trailer drivers can do with their tractor trailers. I don't have a program necessarily that could show that we can have a very large tractor trailer negotiate through the site. I can show a smaller tractor trailer can do it, but not one of the larger ones. And frankly, I'm not sure you would even get the larger ones, but we could certainly show that a smaller one could. We've demonstrated that we can get a fire truck through the site and out. So a smaller tractor trailer vehicle can negotiate through the property and get to the loading zone if it ever had to.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Mr. Walker?
That's it.
Okay. Any other members of the panel?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question of Mr. Clauser.
Go ahead, Mr. Sachs.
Peter, do you know if this site was considered as part of the COA settlement that the township entered into a few years ago?
I don't know that, Larry, but I'm writing down notes, and I know we're going to be back, so it's something I can look into.
All right, thank you.
Larry, it was not.
It was not. Okay,
There
thank
you go. See?
All right. Nicole, I figured you'd know that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sachs. No further, anything further from any of the board members? Okay, I see none. Mr. Clauser, were you going to have another witness tonight, or would you like to maybe go to the public portion at this point?
I think it's probably, with the board's normal rules and timing, I think it's probably a good place to pause and come back.
Okay.
So I'll conclude with Scott for this evening, open it up to the public, and then we'll start again with our architect when we return.
Okay, I think that's fair as well. It's 10:37 p.m., so we do have to allow for the public. Those at home who have interest in this matter, I will open the public portion at this time. This is matter 37-19Z, located at 105 Old Matawan Road, for a creation of a 5-story building. You should see on your screens at home or on your laptops the phone number to call in. I don't know if we have any at this time stacked, but we will take a couple minutes now and wait for the calls, and then will be handled by Ms. Sawant as they come in.
We have 3 callers. The first one, Nina Joknowitz.
Okay. I would remind all the callers that you'll have to be sworn by the board attorney before you can speak. We'll ask you for your name and your address. Please go ahead, Miss, I'm sorry, I didn't get Jackowitz?
Jock Newitz, thank you very much. 203
Yes.
West Greystone Road. And thank you very much for the.
Ms. Joknowitz, I need to
Ma'am.
swear, before you say anything, I need to swear you in. You swear to tell the whole truth, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, zoning board and esteemed lawyers and everybody else on the team and outside. I have first a few things. I was called by the neighborhood. I'm going to just talk about first where I came from, and I'm going to read the names of all of the people who signed off on this. The neighborhood surrounding this proposed site came up with a deciding letter that they wanted to have read to your organization. First, I'm going to start off with all the names and the addresses. Okay?
That's fine.
There are 37 people.
Larry, I object. It's hearsay.
Well, she's reading a letter, it's fine. It's the letter. I'm
Be the
assuming
author
Okay.
of the letter.
Okay, Larry, excuse me. First of all, is the lawyer who's at Clover is objecting. He sent the letters out. I can't pronounce his name because I don't see it in front of me at the right moment. He sent the letters out to the people within 200 square feet. They called me, okay?
Mhm.
But they're also on the line, probably calling in. So let me.
All right, well, I'm going to permit you to read the letter. If you want to read a letter, that's fine. I have no objection to that. And I
I'm
don't
gonna.
think Mr.
I want you to
Clauser's
hear
objection.
all the people because all these people, by the way, have tried on numerous occasions to get in touch with you. We all, by the way, felt it was completely inappropriate that you don't have public in-person hearings because, of course, they could have attended. Because of COVID, we understand the situation. But I would like the permission to read the full letter. Give me
Sure.
1 second, okay?
Mhm.
It takes me a millisecond to get to it. Okay, we, the residents of the 6th Ward and the neighbors of this blighted building are very encouraged that there is interest in working on the structure and restoring the site, but we do not agree to the listed changes in zoning which would be necessary to get this building structure built. First of all, going from commercial to residential. Okay, there are already several facilities in the local, and by the way, I have questions for both.
Ma'am, just read the letter verbatim, please.
These include the facilities in the local neighborhood, which include 24-hour assisted living, including independent living for disabled and elderly persons. They include Summerhill Nursing and Rehab Center, Reformed Church of Aldbridge, Preferred Care of Aldbridge, Roosevelt Care Center, Preferred Care Center of East Brunswick, the Chelsea in East Brunswick, Sunrise of East Brunswick, Parker House of New Brunswick, Monroe, and Care One. Senior housing includes the Aldbridge Rotary Housing, Crescent Senior Housing, Birchwood Senior Housing, and Willett Manor. We do not support the project for several reasons beyond the need to get the zoning changes. First, it's too large for the necessary changes and would give a building without beauty. There is no place for independent living people to walk. There are no sidewalks, and I know you spoke to the
Ms.
sidewalk.
Joknowitz, I don't want to interrupt you, but you're going to have to slow down because we have a court reporter who's taking this down, and at the warp speed that you're speaking, it's going to be difficult. So slow it down a little bit.
Where do you want me to start, ma'am or sir? From where?
No, what I'm saying is I just read it a little bit more slowly because we're getting a verbatim transcript ultimately at this
Okay.
hearing. So just slow down a little bit. That's all I'm asking you to do.
We do not support the project for several reasons beyond the need to get the zoning changes required. First, it is too large for all the necessary changes and would give a building without any beauty. Second, no place for independent living persons to walk to, no sidewalks, and no stores. And I know that I heard about some sidewalks, but there are no sidewalks and no stores there. Driving in and out of the facility would be hindered. Capacity for fire and first aid to get to the location would be very complicated and delays would occur. We already know that area is a flood zone. Okay, so they would be blocked in the case of a flood, which has happened at least 4 times in the 20 years I've been there, that road blocked off.
Is that in the letter, ma'am? Or
Yes.
are you editorializing?
I'm adding those, the 4 times, that I am adding that, but I'm just.
Okay, well, please, I'm asking you to just verbatim.
Okay, parking overflow, there is none. The idea that 56 spots, whereas a given 24 would be for residents, followed by the necessary parking for all employees. How many employees would be needing a parking space? Typical ratio bound is about 4 to 1, plus housekeeping, kitchen staff, grounds and maintenance, occupational physical therapy. There are no locations for overflow, no parking on the street or in adjacent lots. There would be no exterior place for long-term residents to sit quietly, for the patients to enjoy the weather, for rehabilitation, and there are no parks to walk to. The lot size was too small for the original design. This is a total demolition, and what was approved lots for the size of the brand new structure of 5 stories. There are no approved lot. I'm sorry. This is a total demolition, and what are approved lot sizes for a brand new structure with 5 stories in Old Bridge? That's a question, by the way. There is no setback to the structure. 12 feet is not enough, whereas 50 feet is the minimum. There are no 5-story buildings in Old Bridge except for the hospital and the hotel across the street from the hospital, 4 stories. With exception, the building would be taller than every other building in the town except for the hospital. It would also be taller than every building in the Route 18 corridor. Although we would love the opportunity to sit down with the developers who are interested in this building here and identify a structure which would be compliant to the location and community supports. This structure is not the solution. Okay, now do you want me to, can I read the names of the people? Because I went door to door to every single house in the community.
Do you personally live in this area, by the way? I didn't get your
Yes,
address.
I do. I'm 6th Ward. Yes, sir. I guess you didn't
Wait,
hear my
wait.
address.
The sixth ward is pretty big, so.
Okay,
Where do you-
Lawrence, two people came to my house tonight because they couldn't get into your system who live in that exact neighborhood. They probably will call, they're probably the other 2 callers on the line. One of
Okay.
them is Chris. That said, I was called because I do help people all the time, including right now for COVID. I put out about $4,000 in food directly to people's houses in the community, okay? My personal money. So whether I live next door to that property or whatever, I am part of the 6th Ward, and I was asked to speak on their behalf. Now, can I read their names?
Absolutely. Ma'am, slow down. Wait. Just slow down for a second, okay? Because again, this has to be taken down by the court reporter. Mr. Clauser objected to the letter. I ruled that the letter could be read into the record. All right. Well, let me finish. Okay. I will even permit you to read the names of the people, all right, who adopted this letter. However, I would also like you to send me a copy of that letter, all right? Because obviously it's now part of the record, all right? So go ahead, You can read the names. That's fine. You can read the names and you can even state their addresses.
Alberto Masonet. Oh, by the way, if I mispronounce somebody's name, I apologize because I'm not very good at pronunciation. Alberto Masonet, 110 Old Matawan Road. Patricio Nito Nunez, 128 Old Matawan Road. Irene Delonce, 58 Old Matawan Road. Christopher Chamberlain, 146 Old Matawan Road. Samantha Delonce is also 58 Old Matawan Road. Mike Delonce, 58 Old Matawan Road. Carlos Marmlarijos, 117 Old Matawan Road. Jill Cardinal, 132 Old Matawan Road. Jay Small, 72 Old Matawan Road. Erin Delonce, 58 Old Matawan Road. Nitra McAuliffe, 116 Old Matawan Road. Yahira Pisa Thompson, 28 Old Matawan Road. Timothy McAuliffe, 116 Old Matawan Road. Christopher Eskison, 92 Old Matawan Road. He is actually across the street from the building, by the way. Frank Nola, 88 Old Matawan Road. Louis Cardinal, 132 Old Matawan Road. Jyoti Pachova, 82 Old Matawan Road. Michael DeGilio, 28 Old Matawan Road. Sarah Spear, 72 Old Matawan Road. Tomas Pesad, 28 Old Matawan Road. Keith Nielsen, 137 Old Matawan Road. Ryan Hindworth, 28 Old Matawan Road. Connie Nielsen, 137 Old Matawan Road. Samuel Cardinal, 132 Old Matawan Road. Erica Pisano, 88 Old Matawan Road. Amin Habib, 102 Old Matawan Road. Eric Ledbetter, 102 Old Matawan Road. Omar, and I don't have his last name, 126 Old Matawan Road. Richard Thomas, 28 Old Matawan Road. Sebastian Nieto Nunez, 128 Old Matawan Road. Iris Masonet, 110 Old Matawan Road. Christine Ledbetter, 104 Old Matawan Road. Stephen Delancey, there are two Stevens, I think, in that family. 58 Old Matawan Road. I only spoke to one of them. Betty Delancey, 58 Old Matawan Road. Kashif Habib, 102 Old Matawan Road. Michael Chamberlain, 148 Old Matawan Road. And Nagswareo Pachova, 82 Old Matawan Road. 82 is across the street from the building too. Okay, so here are my questions, not theirs. Can I ask them?
Sure.
Okay. So this is to William Zengerle.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, good evening, and thank you very much. I'm impressed that you've spent your whole career working with the elderly population, and I applaud you for it. I looked at a lot of the facilities listed on LinkedIn that you were employed in. Most of them are adult daycare centers. The Haynes Center, Sunrise, Rising Star, they're all senior centers that are daycare centers, right?
No, that's incorrect.
Well, Rising Star is the only one I saw that was Sunrise, was the only one that I saw was a long care facility. Those are the ones that you had listed in LinkedIn. I can't tell what other things you have.
Do you have a question for him, ma'am?
Yes,
Please
yes,
ask
I
the
do.
question.
The question is, you're speaking, you spoke of that the second 2 stories of a 6-story building was going to have family members that were going to assist. And you also mentioned that there were going to be 2 separate elevators, some that went to the 2nd and 3rd floor and some went to the 4th and 5th floor, or 4th and 5th floor, right? Or the second, something like that, right?
I'm not sure what
Okay, so how are these people going to get to the floors? And by the way, when I looked at the design of it, it looks like a bunch of rooms. I was wondering, because I actually have a senior parent in an elderly facility, the Monroe Center, which is called Parker House. And there's a very large seated area that the community people sit in each zone, in each living zone. There's a seating area, there's an exercise area.
Ma'am, you have to get to the question, ma'am.
How are you going to get these people between these floors first? How are you going to sit them based on exactly what we're seeing right now with the COVID crisis downstairs in the floor plan, feeding 24 people directly at a bare minimum, plus their family members, another 40, so 48 people would be sitting downstairs in this space. I'd like you to explain how you can lay out that space, all of the 24 most likely in wheelchairs. Please explain that to me, because I looked at the layout, it doesn't fit.
Okay. Anyway, we're not going to have 48 people at every meal. That's number one. There's going to be, as you say, 24 residents of the facility, roughly. There may be more if there's a couple of shared rooms. If you look at the square footage of the public area, which we didn't really go through the floor plan, but the majority of the public area, or first floor common area, I should say, is wide open.
That brings me to yes, I saw that. How are you going to do physical therapy in a wide open space?
We're not a skilled nursing facility. We're an assisted living. So
So
we
you're
don't have physical therapy on site.
So how are the patients who live there, the assisted living patients, going to get to their daily rehab care?
You're confusing the nature of the project.
Actually, I don't think I am. I'm trying to figure out how you're going to provide for the people that you say you want to provide to. They need daily rehab and physical therapy. So I'm asking you how you're going to provide to that if you're not going to have it on site. You're going to have a big old room downstairs. We're going to have a kitchen, supposedly.
Well, it's not.
You're going to feed 24 people at once. How are you going to get 24 people down the elevators in their wheelchairs? And by the way, when it's a fire, how are you going to get 24 people out of those buildings? And also, you said 2 people would be working in the evening, right? You said 2 people, a nurse and an assistant, right? Because you don't want, God forbid, you don't want a single one person working alone. How are they going to change the diapers of all these memory patients? Because as you know, because you have a mother who has dementia, they all are in diapers. So how are these 2 people going to be changing the diapers of all the people? And then more importantly than that, how are you going to protect those people from pervasive perverts on the 4th and 5th floors or 6th floor, because you're going to open this up? How are you going to protect the people who are the patients in this facility? Are you going to lock them in their rooms? Are they going to be prisoners?
Chairman,
I really don't want to.
we're crossing out of.
Ask one question.
We're crossing out of planning and zoning, and we're going into state regulations that are just not before this board.
Okay, I'm trying to find out how you're going to provide a building in our town that's on a commercial property that was designed for commercial use, for residential, that's going to have 48 people in it. You're going to supposedly take care of them. You're going to have 2 people that are going to be wiping the behinds of these elderly populations. I know for a fact that my mother has a diaper.
That's not a question before this board.
Ma'am, I've listened to you since 10:39. Now I'm going to ask you to listen to me. We're here on a zoning application. What happens inside with state regulations? Totally different issue. The applicant is here asking for permission to build a building, and he is describing to the board what it's going to be used for. You're supposing that the worst could happen, that everyone's in a wheelchair and nobody will fit in an elevator.
No, actually, I'm not, sir.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm telling you right now, that's not the purview of the board. If you have a question for Mr. Zengerle, please ask it succinctly.
Again, how are you going to provide for these people, Mr. Zengerle? How are you going to provide for their care at night?
I'm going to jump back a little bit. My mother doesn't wear a diaper.
Mine does. Mine's 82. She taught in East Brunswick for 45 years.
Mine's 88 and was a registered nurse for 100, almost seems like 100 years. Now, from the other end, how do we provide for these people care? At night, people sleep. So when you're talking about the 2 people, that's on from roughly from 11 to 7, that we're going to stagger the shifts so that it isn't, it's as not as institutional as many other facilities. Second part in the evening, there's also a staggered shift so that there is significantly more people in the facility. To address, and just briefly address, I don't want to go too far down the regulatory road. As far as staffing is concerned in the evening, it'll be 1 nurse and 3 nursing assistants. That's a 6-to-1 ratio. That's higher than almost any other skilled nursing facility, skilled nursing, and that's certainly higher than any assisted living in the state on a regular basis. As far as the first floor layout, and as far as providing for physical therapy, we're talking more physical activities, daily exercises, for example, care-based exercises. And the majority of our people are going to be ambulatory, meaning that they'll be able to walk. Because
okay, so they're going to be ambulatory. What happens when they're not? And how are they going to get up and down the stairs, the elevators? These are memory care patients.
Yeah, they're not going to be walking up and down the stairs.
Okay, so there's no, so I get that. So I appreciate that. Okay, but on every floor, there's just a room. So what are they going to be locked in the room all day?
No, they're going to be downstairs.
So you're going to have 24 people at one time downstairs. How many bathrooms are downstairs? Where are you going to change them? I saw one bathroom for the commonplace bathroom and one nurse's bathroom. By the way, when I looked at the design, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the architect can pull up the drawing of the building.
The
Architecture
architect,
yet, Mr. Chairman.
ma'am, the architect has not testified yet, so.
Okay,
limit
okay,
your
I'll wait from
questions.
that one.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's
But-
do this
but
because.
I'm trying to
ma'am,
understand, I am trying to understand how it is, and that's what everybody in this neighborhood was trying to understand. And by the way, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to ask how you can plan a building, a residential housing structure adjacent to Route 18 for memory patients and the elderly family population, where there is no sidewalks, there is no public space, there are no parks, there is no community, and you're going to do this by changing a bunch of rules to allow it into
Okay.
this.
Ma'am, I need to
let me say
respond.
this.
Ma'am, excuse me. I need to respond because you're making certain statements which are not correct. First of all, this board that you're speaking in front of tonight is the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The purpose of this board is to consider the granting of variances, be they bulk variances, which are dimensional variances, or use variances. This particular project requires a use variance. This applicant is going to present testimony at a future hearing from a planner to convince this board that a use variance should be granted. Nobody on this board has made a determination yet as to whether or not they're going to grant that variance. So I think you're taking 10 steps ahead at this point. But that's what the purpose of this particular board is. This particular board deals with uses that are not permitted. The planning board deals with uses that are permitted. So.
Okay, so I understand that. So you know what? I'm trying to give leverage to the zoning board to turn down
Well,
this. How's that? Is that an
Listen,
acceptable
ma'am,
discussion?
You know, let me finish. Okay, all right. That's certainly your prerogative, all right? The purpose of public portion is for you to voice your displeasure about this application, which I'm assuming you're doing at this particular point in time, and that's fine. And I'm sure there's going to be other members of the public who are going to do the exact same thing. Now, I would suggest that you've asked your questions of this witness. I would imagine.
I do have one question for Scott Turner too, actually.
But let me please finish. He's got other witnesses who will be testifying at subsequent hearings. One of them will be an architect. Some of the questions that you asked probably are more pertinent for the architect. So if you have a question for Mr. Turner, why don't you ask your question? But I'm going to limit your comments to another 2 minutes because it's getting late, and
Beautiful.
we have other members of the public who want to.
Beautiful. I appreciate it, sir.
All right. Go ahead.
Have you, I know that Route 18 is going to have an expansion. We've all been told that as part of Old Bridge Township, correct?
Ma'am, just a question, please.
So I don't see anything in the drawings on the plan that would include the changes in the expansion to Route 18. He talks about a 50 feet. There's a 12 feet on the one side and 50 feet on the other, right? 12 feet on the Old Mattawan Road, and I think 60 feet towards the road. But with the expansion of Route 18, how many feet will that make the distance to the building?
We're not aware of any expansion to Route 18 through this corridor. Not me personally, but our traffic consultant has done some due diligence work with the state and has not come up with any definitive answer or anything at all in regards to any particular Route 18 improvement projects throughout the corridor. So we don't believe we are going to be impacted by Route 18 project at all.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Turner.
thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Jackowitz, for calling in.
Can you provide me with the address that I'm supposed to send the letter to?
You send
Send it to, actually, you can send it to Ms. Silverman, all right, who's our secretary, and she will provide a copy for me.
Okay, Ms. Silverman, what is your address?
One
Within a
Old
minute.
Bridge Plaza, Old Bridge, New Jersey, 8857.
What room number?
Just put it to my attention, Kim Silverman, Planning Office.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
By the way, you guys, before the 5:30, the 7 o'clock meeting or 7:30 downtime, just so you know, you weren't on mute.
We're aware of that, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Who's the next caller?
Vina?
Chris Eskison.
Yeah, ma'am,
yeah.
let me swear
Hello?
you in, all right? You swear to tell the
Yes,
truth, the whole
it's-
truth,
it's
nothing
Chris,
but the
I'm-
truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, I'm sorry. And what's your name, sir?
My name is Christopher Eskison, and I live at 92 Old Matawan Road, directly across the street from this property.
Thank you, sir.
Spell your last
Okay.
name.
Yes,
Just spell your last name.
my last name is Eskesen. First name Christopher.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I like I said, I live directly across the street from this property, and I'm strongly opposed to the plans you have proposed for it. A 5-story building does not belong in a residential neighborhood, and I implore the zoning board to reject these variance waivers. My friend Nina, who you just spoke with, I enlisted her to go with me from house to house, up and down the block, and we got 27 of the different residences on the street, who also, you only distributed the letter of these plans to 2 or 3 households on the street. And it doesn't only affect the 2 or 3 households, it affects the whole street. Okay, now I'm going to go into the reasons why I'm opposed to it. Okay. I say you need to go back to the drawing board. This structure is just too big for the property, and it doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. Assisted living facilities are plentiful in this area. They all have vacancies. Now, after the COVID crisis, you certainly can't deny it, since half the people that passed are in assisted living facilities. Okay, this one will offer nothing that can't be found elsewhere locally. Now, traffic, I don't know if you guys did a traffic survey on this street or not, but pre-pandemic, this street is just as busy as Route 18. People are constantly using it as a cut through to save time and beat the traffic on Route 18. It's horrible already. You're just going to add to that problem. The infrastructure doesn't support this kind of a facility either. There's no sidewalks, parks, or stores for the residents to go to. Are they supposed to be prisoners inside that building? Because I don't see an instance where they could enjoy living there. If my mom was still alive, I would never consider putting her in a facility like this. I would put her in a place much nicer than this. It's a horrible, horrible idea. Okay, now, okay, what I would like to see, I mean, when I first heard that something was going to be developed there, I was kind of excited, because ever since I moved in here, I've been living at this house for over 10 years. And I bought it in spite of the burned out building across the street. If there was a 5-story structure across the street, I would have never purchased this property. I would have went somewhere else. It's ridiculous. And I don't believe any of you, including the lawyers and including the developers, that would want to live across the street from something like this. Now, if you want to build something there, the whole neighborhood is fine with this, but you have to make it something reasonable. You have to make it something that fits the footprint, and you have to make it something that fits what the building was originally zoned for. You can't just purchase something and then all of a sudden get the idea that you're going to triple the size of it and use it for a purpose that it wasn't intended for. So honestly, you guys have to go back to the drawing board on this. I would have retained a lawyer if I could have found one that was more reasonably priced, and if I had the money to afford one. And I'm sure the whole neighborhood feels the same. This is a good neighborhood, a good working class neighborhood. And if you build this facility there, you're going to kill the neighborhood. You're going to kill it. And that's really all I have to say about that.
I want to answer 2 of your questions. You asked about a traffic survey, and Mr. Miskovich is going to be a witness. He's a traffic engineer for this particular project. He'll be put on at a later date because we didn't have the time tonight. And then as far as the notification, it requires 200 feet. Now, I don't know who you're talking about that didn't get it, but I'm sure
None
that
of the other neighbors got it.
has a listing of everybody that it was sent to.
Yeah. It was like 4 or 5 of the homes. That's it.
Well, that may be because those may be the only homes that are within 200 feet of this property. I know the neighborhood.
That's probably
you know,
true.
Yeah. But, so if you live 201 feet away from this property, then you don't get that letter. That's the way the
That's
municipal
correct.
land, yeah, so.
Right.
All right.
All right, the board takes notice that you stand opposed to this. You've said that it was too big, there are too many variances, and there's plenty of assisted living around for others to use. Like, do I have that about right?
Yes, you do. And we're all, the whole neighborhood, that list that Nina read off to you, that's all real people that we went door to
Sure.
door. That's
I don't
something
doubt that for a
you guys
second.
should have did.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much, sir.
thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Good night. Ms. Sawant, is there another one?
Next caller, Rami Joknowitz.
Mr. Joknowitz, are you there?
Hi, guys. That was because I had 2 phones on. Because I wasn't
Okay,
sure.
all right.
I apologize.
Thank you.
By the way,
Okay.
Chris is my witness to every house we went to.
All right.
Good night. And by the way, good job, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen.
Anybody else?
Next caller, Mr. Kevin Ahern.
Hello,
Yeah, Mr. Ahern, I'm gonna have to swear you in.
Sure,
All right, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Sure. Kevin Ahern, 15 Fernwood Place, Old Bridge, New Jersey. And actually, I've been trying to ask the question. I reached out to Kim regarding the minutes of the meeting from March 5th have not been published or approved. And I just was hoping to get, not to wait till the very end here. I was raising my hand earlier, but I realize, you have a lot, your items on the agenda. So is there a chance that the minutes will be approved so we can move forward on that March 5th meeting?
Was the March, were you talking about Metro?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Well, that's a whole different issue, sir.
Yeah.
I know.
Please contact the zoning office, and I'm sure Kim will help you out on that. But
I
thank
have
you for calling
contacted
in.
Kim. Yes, I have, and I called her today too.
Okay, thank you for calling in, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Next caller, the last 4 digits of the number is 0022.
Hello?
Yes, can you please identify who you are?
Sure, the name is Kevin Prenderville.
All right, Kevin, I'm gonna swear you in.
Calling the last, go ahead.
Yeah, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
Sure, Kevin Prenderville, that's Prenderville, 125 Old Matawan Road.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
I'll make it short, sweet. I'll make it short and sweet. It's late. I'm opposed to the 5-story. I have to wait for the architectural and the traffic study for my questions to be answered. So until that happens, it's senseless for me to ask any more questions.
Okay.
Okay, but you stand opposed to it as you've heard it so far. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. When will be the next meeting? So I know when to call back in.
We'll let you know what, stay on this, stay obviously on the meeting, and because we're going to
Sure.
make an announcement, all right?
Okay, no problem at all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next caller, the number ending in 4540. Caller, number ending in 4540.
Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so I'm gonna have to swear you in. You swear to
Sure.
tell you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
Sebastian Nieto, Nieto, and 128 Old Matawan Road.
Thank you.
Well, as we heard so far, yes, I want to voice my opposition to it. It's a very heavy traffic street. I know we're going to talk about traffic at the next meeting. I'm also very concerned about 60-something people being there and no way to walk. There's no sidewalks. If anybody, there will be people that are independent, either if they want to go to Jersey Pride on 516 or to the store by the railroad tracks. It's an accident or many accidents waiting to happen. There's also the bus stop actually at this point stops in that building. Is there any planning or is there any idea to build anything where the children, if they're getting on the school bus, some kind of protection for them instead of waiting out in the open as they do now? Is that something that the property owner would look into to help the children in the neighborhood? That would be something that I would like to suggest if it can be done. And I do work in food service, and I heard somebody asking for the trucks. You don't know which truck you're getting. You can get an 18-wheeler even if you're getting a thing of cheese. So it will be very hard for an 18-wheeler to maneuver through there. And those are my things for today. I know we have other witnesses coming up on June 4th, and I will give my opinion then.
Thank you
So
very
I
much.
would like to know about the school bus, the school bus situation.
Made a note.
Me too.
All right, I was gonna say, Mr. Clauser, you can explore that possibility perhaps.
Ms. Lunt, is there anyone else?
I don't see anyone else.
Yeah, I don't either. Okay. Let's wait about 30, let's wait 30 seconds just to make sure. No one else, Ms. Savant?
Nope,
All right.
no raised hands yet.
All right, I think we probably can, Mr. Chairman, I think you could probably entertain a motion to close.
I would say that we're going to close the public portion at this time for this evening. If you are still watching at home, there is going to be at least another continuance hearing. So you'll have an opportunity to speak at a later date. Mr. Clauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think that date I had asked Kim and Vina earlier in anticipation that we wouldn't finish tonight, if we can spill over onto the June 4th agenda. And I think I was told that would be okay.
It would be okay. With
All right.
notice to the 200 feet,
Say that again?
with notice to the 200 feet.
Yeah, I think that I'm in a position where I have to send letters to the 200
Yeah.
feet because your meeting ID changes for the
Correct.
call-in, and I don't see a proper way to do it without doing the notice. So we have it, and my office will send out the letters again with the new info. In fact, I think Kim has already given me the meeting ID.
Peter, I think you already have the meeting ID, password, and the call-in numbers.
Yeah, and I have it for Old Bridge Rifle, which is on that night. Anyway, it's the same information in the notice.
That's correct.
All right, so if there's any members of the public who are still listening, I believe there was one who wanted to know when the next meeting was on this application. It'll be on for Thursday, June 4th, 2020, at 7:30 p.m. With the same Zoom platform and notification that you've used for this evening. albeit obviously a different ID number. And you will receive a new notice if you live within 200 feet.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for being patient at home. I know that people get excited sometimes when they have a lot that they want to say, and we're more than willing to listen, but we do have to allow other people to get on the phone too. So again, the next time we do this, it will be the same way. Please keep your notes so you have your questions ready when we do get to the public portion. But I want to thank everybody for watching tonight and taking part in this. Ms. Silverman, it is June 4th, correct, for this matter?
Yes, it is June 4th.
Okay.
Chairman Sullivan, I just want to make one announcement. The call-in information for the June 4th meeting will be put up on our township's website next week. So that information will be available to public next week.
Okay, that's very good.
Thank you very much.
719Z to be continued June 4th. There will be further notice that within the 200 foot. If you're not within the 200 foot and you're watching, make yourself a note, June 4th, 7:30. Thank you, Mr. Clauser.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
The same to you, sir. Mr. Sachs, anything else to bring before the board this evening?
No, nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Silverman?
I have nothing.
Okay, and everybody else left us? Ms. Shapiro, anything? Ms. Shapiro?
Mr. Sullivan, there's one thing I want to add. We did start discussions with some members of council and our administration on a kickoff meeting with a design consultant so that we could do some rehabilitation in our courtroom and to update it. So I'll be coming forward hopefully in the June meeting with just a 10 or 15 minute presentation on just the schematic that we're looking at, just to update our courtroom. So I just wanted to bring the zoning board, and I'll do the same for the planning board, up to speed on what we're going to be doing or what to look forward to when we're back all together in the courtroom.
That's great news. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
The same to you. Any other board member, raise your hand if you have anything to say. Otherwise, I'm going to seek a motion to adjourn. Psychowski, what do you have?
I just have a quick question. So I did notice that there was a member of the public, Mr. Ahern, who waited for about 3 hours, and I really appreciate his patience to the motion. And unfortunately, what he had to say had nothing to do with the matters that were being covered tonight. Right. So my question is, as a newer member, is there anything that we as a board could adopt in order to have a short, maybe limited public portion in the beginning of the meeting so that members of the public, like Mr. Ahern, can voice their concerns of items that are not being considered for that day? Well,
I mean, truthfully, I know what his concern is. After I recognized the name, I thought he was going to comment in this meeting. He's waiting for a transcript from happen, and you sat at that meeting as well.
Yes, yes.
I can understand his concern, but it's just misplaced. It shouldn't be taking place now. The reason there's no portion in the beginning is because there's no testimony. So it's the cart before the horse, and it would be the wrong way around. So we need to have the testimony and then have so that people can actually have something legitimate to either complain about or stand in support of. So I think he was just trying to, I guess he was frustrated apparently from maybe a lack of, I don't know, maybe he's just worried about the time. I don't know why, but I'm sure he'll get the transcript when it's available.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just also indicate, I pretty much have the resolution done from that meeting, which you'll adopt and memorialize at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe that's what he was calling about, but
okay.
I don't know.
I mean, that's just an example. I just figured it might make things a little more accessible to the public if they have a concern that's unrelated to agenda items for that particular meeting, like today's meeting. His concern had nothing to do with agenda items for today, rather than have him or any other member of the public wait for the whole meeting. Maybe they can get it done in the beginning. But it was just I was just wondering if that could.
Yep, I understand. And I just think he's just a little overly concerned over waiting for the transcript, but I have no control over that, nor do any of the sitting board members. Right. Anybody else?
Reporter does.
Okay, someone want to move for an adjournment?
Motion. Oh, I beat you.
Is that Mr. Walker? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll stay adjourned until June 4th.
Good enough.
Everybody have a
Good night,
great
everyone.
holiday weekend. Please be safe.
Yeah,
Stay
you
safe,
too.
everybody.
Good night, all.
Bye-bye.
Happy birthday to your son.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you, Jim.
Good night.